To me, my X-Men.
We are nature's favorite children.
Why resist the inevitable?
I got 6 reasons why.
No, my friend. 9.
Fusion intruder neutralized.
The name's Gambit. Mon ami. Remember it.
You heard it up top. Things are about to get a little mutated as our X gene activates and we return to the past with the all new, all sensational, all awesome, in my opinion. That's right. X-Men in 97, the new Disney Plus show. Here on Normies Like Us with your hosts, Colin Klops. Pew, 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 pew.
Mike Nito, I suppose.
I was going to be Jake Nito. I always have to go last, and my name always gets stolen, but that's all right. Jake Nito here.
The Cobb Vereen.
That's fine. The Cobb
That's right.
Vereen.
To me, my normies.
To me, my pod hosts, we're out here. It's uncanny, that we're talking the X-Men again, as it were.
Wow.
It is.
Incredible.
Disney Plus. Yeah, incredible. I'm excited about it. I, got the jumpsuit back on again. I think there's jumpsuits in this show,
Sure.
Yeah. Someone's got them.
That's what your outfit
black
would
leather.
look like.
Yeah, what do you expect? Black leather? Yeah, 3D printed my X-Men badge, for those watching at home, last minute. So
Very nice.
Famously, I've not been a huge fan of the X-Men show. We've talked about on other episodes, right?
Wow.
Growing up,
the theme song.
That's my hottest take. It wasn't that I hated it. It's just, I don't know. I know your name's Cyclops. I don't need to see the text, They don't see saying the lizard in the Spider-Man opening. For whatever reason, I bounced off of it. They should have, yeah. But this is really, I really have enjoyed this, not to bury the lead, but I'm excited to talk about it. But what about you guys? What's your history kind of with the original show? Colin, I'll kick it off to you. But yeah, where were you at going into this new series?
Yeah, I mean, I was a Fox Kids, which I think is what this was all part of. Devourer, I think I tuned into all of this. I mean, it wasn't even like the fucking superhero stuff. I'm sitting down for Bobby's World, I'm fully suckered in, unfortunately. Louis. Louis. God, who could forget?
My favorite show, my favorite.
I was on the Fox Kids too,
truly.
Yes.
Yes, truly. And you would sit down and you'd watch all these things, and it dawning on you of wow, the X-Men. That's just about the coolest thing I've ever thought of. Oh, and it's followed up by this guy I love named Spider-Man. I'll never get happier than this. And loved them. And then I think rewatched.
And you never did.
Series. Well, I was never happy. Rewatched them both in college, and I remember us kind of thinking, Jacob, because we definitely watched them with Joe, I think, in between some drinking sessions, that the show didn't hold up, and I really had not returned to it since then.
Well, there was an animated X-Men called, I don't know if it's called The Amazing X-Men or something, that was on in the early 2010s, I think, that we watched, that our friend Andrew put us onto. I think that was
Evolution era, maybe.
X-Men Evolution.
That was a little before that. I think you're thinking of Wolverine and the X-Men, which was a third odd cartoon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
But of course, yeah, for me, I mean, obviously Colin and our departed friend Joe are the big X-Men Marvel boys here, I think. But I definitely watched this show as a kid. I said before on the podcast, I was more of a DC kid growing up, where I was watching, Batman animated series and Justice League and that kind of thing. But X-Men was the one Marvel show that I did watch, because I actually didn't watch Spider-Man or, I don't know, Iron Man or whatever other shows that they had, but that were in the same universe. But I did watch the X-Men. So that was the one that I was like, this shit is going in. So, yeah, I'm a fan of the.
Was it all,
90s
Jacob?
cartoon.
Was it all airing literally the same day, same time? Was the choice? Were you flipping between Fox Kids and WB? I cannot remember.
I'm not sure. I mean, for me, it was always just oh, turn on the TV on a random Saturday morning. Oh, there's an X-Men episode on. I'm gonna watch it. It was never in order. We watch things now with streaming.
No,
it's just you catch a random episode and it's oh yeah, that's my friends, the X-Men.
I know them. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Logan and Nightcrawler are going to get drunk and fight the Juggernaut. What an episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm 10 and I just saw Rogue, so I'll be heading to the bathroom very quickly after this.
Yeah, love that accent.
Love that accent. Heck of an accent. Well, we're going to talk about what we got in this series, but you know,
Yes.
it's I liked X-Men in different capacities, I guess. Like I remember enjoying the X-Men Legends games. I had trading cards that I would kind of obsess over. You know, kind of get into like some of those characters as we break this down. And I like the X-Men as a thing, as an entity. It's just I shouldn't have bounced against the theme song, but I do love it. I acknowledge it as a banger. I like this
The
series.
show just didn't do it for you.
I don't know what it was. Wrong place.
And let
wrong
me ask
time.
you guys, have you gone back and rewatched the original show at all in recent years or anything like, or in preparation for this show?
There have been so many fun Easter egg crossovers that you can find on these dumbass YouTube aggregate sites that I've watched 1,000 clips, but no, have not gone back episode to episode.
Yeah,
There's that famous meme, of course, of Wolverine holding a picture.
Classic.
I feel like there's a lot of these because there's also that one where Wolverine just kind of walks into the kiss between Cyclops and Jean as a meme. The Rogue's butt is kind of a meme where Apocalypse is kind of coming down on her. I feel like it's kind of a memed show.
Sure. It is. And we were talking about the X gene earlier. Just don't say that in front of Wolverine or he'll get a little... Or maybe Scott, depending on what timeline we're on. He doesn't want to know about his X gene. Yeah.
So we're in the middle of our huge watch along right now. Our current chosen property is Planet of the Apes. I will say, Jacob, you have floated out there 1,000 times, and God, maybe one day we'll do it, of doing all the X-Men movies.
Yes.
It's just, you do 3 BS movies in a row, and then a Brett Ratner movie. It's almost horrifying the people that you have to cover to talk about those movies. So if we can find a way to do it. Yes.
Yeah, you know, when we were looking for franchises to do, and we landed on Planet of the Apes, but X-Men was one that I floated as something that we haven't really talked about too much on this show before. But yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, those first couple X-Men movies were considered like some of the best early superhero movies of that era, but looking back, maybe they don't hold up as well. It would be good. It would be fun to revisit all those, I think.
It would be a hoot.
Yeah. I do think there's some iconic moments from those. I mean, I'll always remember Magneto pulling the iron out of that guy's blood is one of the coolest fucking things I'd ever like as an idea. Like, whoa, that's like pretty sick. So
yeah.
But maybe
before we get into it too, I wanted to ask you one other thing. What is your guys' favorite X-Men or favorite mutant in the X-Men world?
That's a good question. I had that written down for the wrap up, but I think that's good for now. Colin, you kick it off. What's your favorite X-Men?
Either from this show or just in general.
Yeah.
I got a couple different answers here in that I think my favorite X-Man is Colossus and has been for a million years. I love Colossus. I love the, sensitive artist who's a big lug who's made of metal, a himbo, if you will. I love that type.
Sure.
The power I always wanted was Angel, just because that just seems so easy and obvious to just have wings. Like, yeah, great. Like, I don't want to join either of your sides. Get me away from here. Let me fly away. So I don't know. That's kind of how I always saw it.
The problem with that is so many X-Men have the ability to fly as like a secondary.
I don't care.
Without wings.
But here's the thing. I don't need to be blasting beams out of my body while flying around and hurting people. If I just got the wings, I'm solid.
That's good. That's a good answer.
Blasting beams on accident, what an awkward phase.
How about you guys? Mike, have you thought about this?
So I'm actually, through playing like those Marvel games like X-Men Legends, I actually became like a Colossus fan through the gameplay. Like I liked playing kind of that tank build, so I like Colossus in that sense. I think I have always been into Gambit. Like Gambit was always very cool in the cartoon, obviously. I've gone through an Archangel phase. Like once you have metal wings, regular wings I'm out, but metal wings and knives, then I'm in. And then Nightcrawler's cool and stuff. Everybody likes Wolverine, but he was never my favorite. But I think maybe Colossus and Archangel and Gambit were kind of the cool. I learned how to throw cards like in real life. Like I could stick a card into an apple. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that kind of thing.
That's fucking
that's the
awesome.
shit.
When you do axe throwing, they always give you those. They're like, we've got a couple of these like random like shurikens or like metal cards, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no. I always am like, no. I will
I gotta
kill
try that next
myself.
time. No, we'll have to get a deck of cards and an apple next time we're hanging out. I'll try to see if we still got it. See if I can.
Yeah,
sneak
Gambit has a
card
very
and
cool
apple.
power where you can
Yeah.
use his
Charge things up.
potential energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Jacob, how about you? Do you have a favorite X-Man?
Yeah, well, I'm surprised no one said Wolverine. He's not my favorite either, but because he's obviously a fan favorite, and there's been a big debate of like Team Wolverine or Team Cyclops. I feel like Cyclops has been sort of neglected in a lot of X-Men media, but
yeah,
the reason I was asking this question because you mentioned that Magneto scene, which made me think of it. Magneto has always been my guy.
Wow.
Not really an X-Men, I guess. Well, I guess he is in this show. Yeah, he's a mutant, and I've loved Magneto in every incarnation of the Ian McKellen, Michael Fassbender, this show. Like I'm team #Magneto was right, and I love Magneto, so that's my answer. Yeah,
that's an Omega. He's an Omega level threat. Him.
He's
Storm,
got one of the coolest
Gambit
powers.
Sometimes gets there, but yeah, he's got a great power set. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, and
the Malcolm X to Professor X's Martin Luther King. So I've always been on the more like, yeah, fuck just being tolerant. Like we need to fight back. So I love Magneto, love his powers, and he's the best.
There's a meme or like use speech people use now of like, this goes hard, this picture's hard, that goes so hard, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Hardest line of fiction.
Magneto, a
goes hard.
silver fox, 80-year-old,
yes.
Naked,
long,
muscle
hair,
luscious man, calling you a race traitor while using his superpowers and reminding you of the genocide he lived through is about the hardest image that has ever existed.
It's insane, and we'll talk about it as we get into the show. But I've always loved the dynamic between Magneto and Professor X. I think that's like the backbone of what makes X-Men good, is that you have these two sides that both want the same thing basically, but have different ways of approaching that. And I've always thought that was like the coolest thing about X-Men. So I'm excited to talk about it.
I agree, and I think that's like the best jumping off point to jump into the show, because really where this thing kicks off, it like puts us, it has a great hook, I guess, based on what you're saying, Jacob, of the difference in thought process between Xavier and Magneto. So maybe now's the time to let's dive in. Let's hop in the X-Jet. To me, my Podmen. Let's talk X-Men 97 right after this.
It's called the Blackbird, Mike. It's not called the X-Jet.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm a fake fan. I'm sorry.
He doesn't like the theme song.
I didn't even play it right now.
I always liked when that song came on because I knew I was about to see some good show.
Oh, shit. My friend Wolverine. I know him.
It just felt self-indulgent. I don't know why. I acknowledged that I was wrong. I could acknowledge that I was wrong.
Those
that
guitars?
It slaps.
Yeah. It's like that, and the Power Rangers theme song always got me revved up, ready to watch some good shit.
Very true.
Power Rangers landed, but if I came in the room after the theme song had ended, I'm like, all right, it's X-Men time. Let's go. All right. Like I was here for it once. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's fair.
We're back with maybe the most controversial opinion ever. We're talking X-Men 97. Mike, the letters of your name just exploded behind you as you unleashed your power, and you're saying you don't like that.
Yeah, it would show all
the Brotherhood of Mutants.
It's good if you're jumping into the show because it shows all the characters, like what they do, and
what's this guy's deal?
Right?
More. Okay.
Yeah. It's very effective at what it does. I don't know why. I had a bad brain.
No, I get it. Kids have short attention spans and stuff, so I get it.
And just the weird grudges you would pick as a kid. I understand that too. Just be like, no, this like thing wronged me one time.
It just took a little too long. ADHD is happening. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
You're hopped up on some, sugary cereal. You just got done eating, ready to watch some Saturday morning cartoons.
And do you remember that the Spider-Man is just an electric guitar soloing the entire time?
And
it's
like
so crazy.
Spider blood, radioactive spider blood. That's
so
even more repetitive.
Yes.
Which maybe we'll get into that. But this is a good point, though, because this new theme song, like it's kind of a rearrangement, and it reintroduces some of these characters like Morph wasn't in the original. cut, so it is doing its job, like you said, Jacob. So to be fair, it still slaps.
Absolutely. It's catching up on the past because, of course, this is a relaunch of a series, very oddly. The first of a new initiative at Marvel called Marvel Animation, which going forward is going to house all their stuff. I guess retroactively, What If is going to go under that banner as well. But this is a relaunch of that 1992 to 1995 X-Men. Wasn't even called X-Men Animated Series. It was just called X-Men on Fox Kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I thought, this is one of the best ideas Marvel has had in a while to just, there's a lot of nostalgia for this 90s show, to just reboot it, the same show basically, but update it for modern times rather than doing a full reboot, different animated X-Men show with different designs and stuff. Continue the aesthetics and the designs of that show, but update it for modern audiences. I think that was a really good idea, and it worked out really well, obviously.
And to pitch it to the audience that grew up watching it, like, we're not rehashing. You saw it; it's more adult, it's more mature. And
absolutely.
Before we jump into this, I do need to apologize to the audience because I was under the weather and I was unable to record at the normal time, but it ended up being a benefit because we were able to review the finale in all 10 episodes. So that's kind of why we're a little bit late, but it ended up kind of being a blessing in disguise. So full spoilers on all 10 of these.
Yes. Yeah, that's all I care about. Don't apologize for that. The fact that we get to do the whole series, that's the cool thing.
It's a very special episode. Yeah.
Because as we're recording, the last episode came out, I think, last night. Part 3 of Tolerance's Extinction.
My God. The titles, the dialogue. We'll get into all of it.
Oh, man. Yeah. But to update it for people our age who are like, we're ready for more mature storytelling, like, what I thought it would just be a nostalgia grab. And I was, again, as someone who hated the theme song and is wrong, I was surprised by how much this landed for me just right out the gate, episode 1. I was like, I'm here for it.
No, I think they found the perfect balance between, there is the nostalgia for that show, but I think that is the distinction, is that these two shows were made for different audiences. So like the 90s show was made for kids. This show was made for 35-year-olds that were kids when the original show was on.
It's made for the same audience at the age at which you're meeting them, at that stage in their life. Yeah, it was made.
I think kids could still enjoy this, of course, but I think it's definitely more targeted towards adults who grew up with that original show.
This is Labyrinth level of heavy for kids these days. Like, something like that. Yeah. To watch this.
Jacob, do you think that they could enjoy now watching the 92 to 95 series?
I think, I don't know, depends on the age, maybe, because some younger kids might find it boring or have short attention spans like Mike when he was a kid. But
well, there's also the question of, do they read comics? Are they seeking out Wolverine in the way that when I was 8 years old and they told me the show is going to be on, I was like, I know who Wolverine is already. He's my friend. I love him.
I would assume more people know now because of the movies, and they know, oh, Hugh Jackman, that's Wolverine, of course.
Really became like the main character for those.
But when was the last time he was Wolverine? That was 8 years ago at this point.
Well, there's this new movie coming out called
Logan was
Deadpool.
The last time we
that
saw
we'll get to. I'm very curious what we think the future of mutants and all that jazz is. We'll talk Deadpool 3. But it is an interesting question of what was the audience for this. Obviously, it is us. Why did this come about? I have to assume it's a producer was going over their balance book and said, hey, we're still paying royalty to some of these people who are alive. Let's just call them up. And then, like you guys said, prey on nostalgia. But to take a whole new initiative to do animation and to basically kind of put together a team to animate this in a style that really hadn't been shown before. And it seemed like they were kind of hiding it for a little bit because they didn't want to show that they'd updated it and wasn't necessarily going to be exactly the same. But, here we are now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a great idea to do it because people do have so much nostalgic love for the original. And it's interesting because this is pretty much the first thing that Marvel MCU has done with the X-Men since they got their rights to them, other than a couple in-jokes and cameos and various things. But this is the first full-fledged, we own the X-Men now, we can make this show, because this is, Disney, MCU. I know that the creator of the show, and this is something we should talk about, Bo Mayo, who was fired right before the show premiered, which is very unusual because he's the creator and the showrunner of this show, and he was sort of unceremoniously fired right before this show that's getting huge critical acclaim came out. So I think that's worth mentioning because
Oh, absolutely.
you know, it's like it's getting all this praise now, and the guy that was behind it was fired right before it came out. So that's very strange.
Now he's not the showrunner of The Witcher. Obviously, that's that Lauren Hirsch or whatever. But he has a past where he was a staff writer on that show. Supposedly, all conjecture, they say, was let go from that show as well because other staff writers on that had an issue with him. Supposedly,
hard to work with. Yeah.
Hard to work with is the words that they use, but supposedly, Jacob, I think you'll find this interesting, is he was one of these people in the Witcher room who was like, we're not adapting the books well enough. And given his level of adaptation on X-Men stories here, I am kind of willing to believe that story, that maybe he sort of didn't gel with that crew there.
Yeah, the Witcher writing, it's like, obviously Henry Cavill left that show because he wasn't happy with the direction it was going. So I'm more inclined to take this guy's side. And then also another show that he wrote for before this, you might have heard of, a little show called Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
No kidding.
Yeah, so he wrote on that show.
Wow.
So I don't know, it's very unusual. They just fired him right before the show came out. And he said he's already written season 2, so so that's going to be his, work too. But after that, it's like, can you even trust where the series is going when they fired the guy who had like all these good ideas?
No. Now to add, just
why really, like it's so vague, right?
That's the like. So to add extra levels to it, there is this intense NDA that has been signed. Now, like Jacob said, to get fired 2 weeks before your show releases, that is not normal. Usually,
the other thing is
cycle. They just let it happen, and then they just hide people at the end.
Yeah. The other thing they said when it happened is that he has a non-sexual OnlyFans account, and they were not happy with him using that, which is also very strange reason.
He's a gay man who seems to like to take cheesecake photos and talk about comic stuff on his OnlyFans. It is, like you said, non-sexual.
Yeah,
Disney's Disney. I don't think you'd be allowed to have any kind of OnlyFans.
Yeah.
So,
there's no buff dudes running around in their underwear in this show,
Well, he's made a lot of comments
double
with fans
standards,
like,
guys.
We see you with that Magneto stuff, and he's like, guilty. So here's the other thing. He's been very vocal on Twitter with where every episode comes out. He says, this is Bo's homework for the new episode. Read these comics, read this. So it also seems like he's not limited from promotion.
No,
so
he's been talking about it a lot on Twitter.
Yeah.
And even the finale, he's been retweeting and talking about it. So it's very strange. And I don't know. I feel like there should be some kind of campaign to get him rehired or something.
Don't attach yourself to anybody, is what I would say. You got fired for things that you don't know.
I don't have enough information, but
I'm inclined to side against the mega corporation and with the artist, not knowing what the details. Of course, it could be something really bad, but
the work that we've gotten on paper for the series is like incredible, and we don't know the details. But normally you get the blanket creative differences. We don't even have that, so it's a very weird situation. But I think we have at least 2 seasons of clearly someone who's passionate about the source material and has delivered something good, at least for the fans. I can't say anything more than that, but fuck corpos too,
Right, but yeah, season 2 is written, so yeah, who knows? I guess if it gets to a season 3, there might be some kind of creative change or something, but we'll have to see how that goes.
Well, yeah, it's a new catchphrase, I guess. We'll just have to wait and see.
That's right.
Just gonna have to wait and see.
We have to wait and see. But this show, season 1, I think was a huge success, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's dive right in. It like I said, it adapted a bunch of interesting comic storylines directly from Marvel. You had things like the Trial of Magneto, the New Mutant storyline with the introduction of Sunspot, this thing called Fatal Attractions, which is where the metal is literally pulled from Wolverine, Operation Zero Tolerance, and then, like Jacob said, Tolerance is extinction. It's these incredibly bold things. I mean, I guess, let's go through it, episode by episode, but I guess to start, just those initial reactions, I know we're all super positive on it. I guess what I, again, want to just open the floor to discuss, to say the maturity of it all, is you have these incredible lines, being delivered by incredible people. We'll talk about the voice cast here in a second, some returning as well as some new. But just to go back to what you said about just having Magneto, Jacob, the idea again that the creators are adapting X-Men, which has always been about social change, minority oppression, things like that, and really taking the ball and going with that in a manner that you never would have thought they could. Now, again, is that Bodamayo a minority, a black gay man, at the helm of that who can really share those experiences? You have to think so, because I mean, I've
Yeah.
what other TV show on now talks about like, well, you don't understand when there's a war and people get killed, your brain just kind of turns it off in the middle of a war going on where people are getting killed and we're all
Yeah.
turning our brains off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I love all the social commentary in this, and of course, X-Men, like you said, it's been used as sort of a metaphor for. It's always, it's an outside group being, people being prejudiced against them. So whether that's civil rights or LGBT rights, with like the first two, the BS movies, of course, which went big into the whole, gay rights thing, which this show I feel like does a lot too.
Have you tried
yeah, I
not
love
being a
it.
mutant? Yeah.
Yeah.
That famous
Cure.
line.
And you
yeah.
have, like I mentioned, the more peaceful Professor X versus the more militant Magneto. Two different ways of approaching, like, how do we get humans to accept us, kind of thing. Well, it's not just about acceptance for Magneto. It's about, we shouldn't have to just settle for acceptance, like, right?
No.
So
he believes the mutants are the next. They are better.
Yeah,
I'm better. These guys, superiority.
But I thought there was a surprising amount of like subtlety with Magneto's writing, especially like in these first two episodes, the Trial of Magneto stuff, where you do see his point of view. And of course, as a Magneto fanboy, I'm like, yeah, go Team Magneto. But of course, in the original show, right at the end of the show, I believe Professor X is assassinated or attempted to be assassinated, but is now hiding out on this other planet of Shi'ar, which we'll talk about. But in the wake of that, he basically in his will said to Magneto, I want you to take over as the head of the X-Men. And so that's what's, Cyclops and the rest of them are having to come to terms with.
Our
Magneto.
greatest villain? Huh?
Yeah. So I think that's an interesting dynamic. And of course, Magneto, he's more of an anti-hero who can border on villainous actions, where he's not completely evil, but he's doing bad things to justify, for good reasons, kind of thing. So
yeah, and that's like such a strong hook, because having not really seen the show in years, I don't even remember seeing the ending and knowing that that's kind of where it left off, to be like, hey,
Yeah,
remember
me
the
either.
X-Men with Xavier? Sure do. Well, guess what? Now Magneto's the
dead.
leader. I'm like, what? What?
Yeah.
Like, I have to watch this. This is crazy, right?
And of course, yeah, when it comes out, you think, oh, Professor X is dead. You don't find out that he's not dead until much later in the show. And Magneto is now in charge of the X-Men. Cyclops, Wolverine, Jean Grey, they're all having to work with him. You find out this stuff with Rogue, with her past with Magneto, which is interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a good hook to open these people's worldview up of, like you said, Jacob, obviously, again, it's so obvious, the MLK versus Malcolm X, but the to have a conscience versus to have action, that we need to defend ourselves, to set these two different viewpoints up. I saw a great quote on Reddit of somebody breaking down kind of what is the Magneto is right, because obviously that has become this huge rallying call in the comics itself. Saying that, like, look, like, what you guys have to understand about these Marvel comics is been going on since the 60s. So the fucking fact that it's like Juggernaut appears again, watch out, it's the Juggernaut gang. Juggernaut's appeared in 500 X-Men comics at this point, right?
Right.
So now when you read modern ones and you're like, oh, Juggernaut's a good guy, that's kind of weird. And I saw this great comment that said, like, when you have these characters that have gone on so long that writers run out of material with them and they do these sort of side swappings, it can look a little lazy. And especially in comparison to a character like Magneto, where it's not the content that you're changing around him, it's that society is moving around his content. In the 60s, Magneto was a radical. Post-Reagan, everything Magneto has ever said has always been correct. And when you're a writer, like, writing these things where you're like, but we kind of still have to make him be the bad guy, it's hard when you're like, who? The guy who, with a thought, could destroy the entire planet, but he doesn't, even though he survived the Holocaust, the worst thing to
Yeah.
ever happen to anybody, and still he struggles with this rallying call of like, should he kill all of us? Like, it's so
Right.
sympathetic.
Yeah.
And he is
Um,
trying in this show to like follow Professor X's path, kind of, and be like, okay, well, it was his last dying wish, so I am gonna try to do that. And in the movies, this relationship has been really looked at extensively, whether it's Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen and their philosophical debates in the early movies, or the Michael Fassbender, James McAvoy working together when they're younger, and then you see the split and what happens because of that. So yeah, it's all really interesting stuff.
Yes, and we get this. So this is our first great lines. Is this great trial of Magneto, where after this executioner, this villain of humanity trying to kill mutants, is stopped, and he drags him up into the sky, along with this human council who's judging him, and he's saying, "Ingrate, insect, so small, so stupid, so weak, I could crush you. My boot, you're nothing, but." I am going to listen to my friend, see the perspective that the world is so much larger than our small petty squabbles. Why are we doing this? And it sets up a great arc of you literally on the edge of your seat the entire season being like, please, when he says, don't let me let him down, you yourself are like, please don't make him kill you. Like,
Don't make me
please
prove
don't
you
make
right.
him do this.
Or
Yes,
prove- yeah.
please.
And
So
humanity
good.
has time and time again, like they've tried to give humanity chances, and of course there are some humans that want to live in peace with mutants, and then there's others that are bigoted towards mutants and have terrorist groups like the Friends of Humanity type of thing.
They get involved our Trask, up in the military in some instances, not anymore, but yeah, it's
the
it's an interesting thing.
Sentinels. Yeah.
And
But we
seeing
have, of course,
Magneto-
the
Well, I just want to say the character
yeah.
work real quick of seeing him. He's got his long hair. We say he's great, right? But like, I was so used to seeing with the helmet that now that he doesn't, like, I forgot that like the only reason he does is to keep Charles out, and like his friend is gone and he doesn't need the helmet. It's like there's subtle character work happening too, like really, really good stuff.
Well, and with the helmet too, I can tell you something that might blow your mind. The helmet blocking Charles was a development made by the movies. That was not a thing in the original cartoon, strangely enough. So that's one thing that the movies invented that they've just, gone with afterwards, I believe, in the comics and stuff. But it makes so much sense. They're like, why was that not the case before? It, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
So
Well, also, how does it block at this level? What is it made
well,
of?
it's like special metal.
He creates a special
vibranium or
magnetic field because
adamantium.
he's Magneto. I don't know.
How does he touch Rogue? I would love to know all these things. But real quick, to shout out.
He's got that dog in him.
Because his magnetic properties are so strong, I guess.
Yeah.
The magnetic
So this is
personality.
Matthew. That is what it is. It's Matthew Watterson as Magneto. He is one of our new additions this season because, of course, the Magneto actor died a long time ago. He was a very old man in the original series. So
I assume. So I know they got some of the returning cast. I assume they got anyone that wasn't dead or just too old to do the voice anymore.
Well, so of that returning cast, you've got Allison Seeley Smith as Storm, Cal Dodd as Wolverine, Lenore Zahn as Rogue, and then the former Gambit voice actor Chris Porter now does Cable. I don't. So
I mean, they've all got to be in their 60s or 70s too.
Oh, 70s and 80s. Cal Dodd, the guy who plays Wolverine, I believe, is a mummy now.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, I left the Beast actor off there as well. He is returning as well. I don't have his name. But so what do you guys think about these? Sometimes they bugged me. Sometimes Rogue sounded extremely old. And then somehow by the last half of the season, she sounded younger than she did in the first series. So I didn't understand that, but I don't know. Wolverine sounded too old.
Sounds very old. It's like when you're watching, if you watch current day Simpsons and it's like, Marge, like, you are getting so old. Like the voice actors for the Simpsons, they're all getting so old. But I think that's passage of time, sadly.
Right. Talked about it.
It didn't bug you guys at all?
Not really, because I appreciated some of the returning voices. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Rogue's voice. That's Storm's voice. I remember those voices from the
perfect. She did not sound old at all. So
yeah,
not enough to take me out of it. And then I think some of the new casts, like the new Magneto, like I was like, this feels like that Pizza Hut VHS I watched over and over. Like when he's taking all the
Yes.
cops' guns, I'm like, this feels correct.
Mike, I had that Pizza Hut
I
VHS,
had the
Mike.
first
How
two.
dare you invoke that?
And he
Yes.
called
Oh
me a
my
fake
God.
fan. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Professor X, who we don't meet until later in the season, I know he was voiced by Ross Marquand, who of course did Red Hood or what's his
Red Skull.
in subsequent appearances, not in the first one when he was what's his name, but Ross Marquand has done a
Ton
lot
of voices
voice
on
work.
Invincible. Yeah, like the guy
Yeah.
just seems to be
He
the
was in
go-to
Walking
for
Dead.
Marvel now, just to be
But he's
like
really, he's carved
the
out a
voice
niche
in.
of voice acting now. Yeah.
weird.
But there was an interesting connection I saw because the original Professor X voice actor in the 90s show also voiced Red Skull in some media. So I
Yeah.
read that online and I thought that was interesting.
Weird.
Yeah.
Bald, you can do it. He's got the job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bald character anyway.
Should have just got Patrick Stewart.
Oh, yes. But yeah, strong opening with this whole trial, like you're saying, and like for a literal god to submit and be like, go ahead, like I'm playing by your rules. And then there's still the extremist dude, I can't remember his name, but he's got the like mutant power gun. And then this causes Storm to sacrifice herself to protect Magneto.
Yeah.
She ends up losing her powers, which is a big part of this series too, which was crazy.
That's
like
when you know shit is real. Yeah.
Yeah. Like shit is.
We have like characters dying later, like major characters dying, which we'll get into. Characters losing their power. I mean, she does get it back eventually, which I kind of figured she would, but she has to go through this whole, life-changing event to get her powers back, basically.
She's got to get Groot back.
If anybody, yeah, exactly. But if anybody at the X Mansion could like stand up to Magneto if he decided to go crazy, it would have been Storm. And now it's like, damn, like we have nothing now. Like the stakes are set, and like it's really clever writing. Like well done.
Just to like Chris Claremont is the guy who's the main writer. He's the one who introduced Storm, and like he did the relaunch. That's you guys have probably seen the famous all new, all giant sized X-Men. It's where you get the Wolverine and Nightcrawler and like all these people who are the returning, right? Just to go on a runner real quick, if you guys will indulge me. I'm going to just list off traits of these characters, the main team and the ones that he sort of like revamped and stuff, just to show you what an interesting, clever writer Chris Claremont is, where it's like he invents Nightcrawler. And what's Nightcrawler's thing? He looks like a devil, but he's a priest. He's the most angelic. Storm. What's Storm's thing? Storm is a black woman, which is maybe the most marginalized group of people in existence. What is her thing? She's a goddess. She's the most powerful person of all time. Colossus, I said it, super sensitive. He's a crybaby. He can turn into metal. He's the strongest thing ever. Cyclops, the leader who has to have vision, can't see. Jean Grey, the mousy girl who's just quiet and wants to be alone, can't get out of people's heads. Xavier,
Rogue, can't touch people.
Rogue, who wants to be charismatic, can't touch people. Beast, the genius, is the most animalistic and savage, right? Like, and you go like, Colin, that's good writing. What you're saying, these weird, just like little flips of the coin. Well, just to say, like, that's where they start. That's his jumping off point. When you go into the characters from there, where you're like, what's Storm's thing? Oh, she was a goddess from Africa who was a thief in Cairo before she became a teacher, before she became the most powerful mutant. Like, they are so complicated and so interesting.
Yeah.
And it always comes down to the human melodrama. And that's just such another soap opera awesome aspect that I think this show gets so well, that we just talked about, all these characters talking about that trial going on, and they're talking about the weight of humanity and progression forward and evolution and racism. What does it mean? And all that in that episode is paired with a woman having a baby and Cyclops being like, I gotta go, like help my baby, and like running home for the family drama that they're taking care of. That's what X-Men is. It marries all that together so perfectly.
Sure. And Xavier School it's like the family you find, right? Like they're all misfits, and they're all grieving Xavier at the same time.
And
like
that's
all about those interpersonal dynamics. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, found family being a big theme. That's how a lot of like LGBT people who are maybe shunned by their family or don't feel like they're related family is their real family, but they make their own found family with other people. So I think that's a lot like that. Yeah. But I want to shout out Cyclops for one, because I think this is a character that he gets done dirty by the movies a lot. Like, really, I feel like movie Cyclops isn't very interesting.
So he's a cuck.
I've heard.
His thing is that he's a cuck.
Yeah,
and you're like, no,
it.
it's not.
No.
Cyclops. If you read an X-Men book, Cyclops' entire thing is like, okay, I'm the leader, and like, it's like it's on me if the mission's gonna work, and I have to battle my hero saying we can't kill, and this guy I'm against saying that we kill. And what's happening in the background? My wife's revealed to be a clone. She had a secret baby. That baby we sent to the future. My father lives in space. He's a space pirate who's helping the trial of my actual wife, who's a space god who ate a planet. Right. And it's supposed to be like, what he's supposed to be is this guy who's like about to explode. He's cracking so much, but he's always like, no.
He's got to keep it together.
Team.
He's the leader.
I must keep it together. And Ray Chase, the voice actor for this, my God, does he do such a good job. And the writing is there for it too. I mean, so good.
And we'll get into the Jean Grey clone stuff and everything in the baby Nathan and all that. But just, I think the movies have done him a disservice, because, like, nothing against James Marsden or anything, but I just think his character.
Love Sonic.
They never, right. But they never figure out what to do with him in the movies. And also this is an invention in the movies where Wolverine's the main character of X-Men, right? Everybody loves Wolverine. He's the POV character, especially of the early movies. And it's like, that's not really the dynamic of the show at all. Like, Wolverine's kind of like the cool outsider, but he's not like taking over missions. And there's a lot less of that like combativeness between Cyclops and Wolverine that's in the movies.
Yeah, and as a true fan of the X-Men, I know that the original lineup was Cyclops, Angel, Beast, and Jean Grey. Like, Cyclops has always been the leader. It just Wolverine took over through the movies. That is very much
and people identify with him, and of course there's that Jean Grey thing where he's in love with Jean Grey, but she's never reciprocates really those feelings. She's always, she's with Scott Summers. She's not with Logan, but so I just think that this show did a really good job of being like, yeah, Cyclops is an interesting character, and we're going to make you realize that. With
he's never looked
melodramas there.
Yeah.
Well, no, when
what they do with his powers,
bro.
Oh my God.
Because and that's another thing is like, there's so much that he can do with his powers that's never really shown in the movies or anything, because it's like sonic bursts. It's not like, it's not lasers. It's
not a laser.
Concussive blast.
Right.
Concussive octave blast. But when you're a kid, you hear it and you're like, he shoots lasers, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And like, that's it. But when you have the imagination as a writer to be like, no, here's what it would mean if you could constantly shoot a laser out of your face.
Yeah.
You're going to stop yourself from falling out of an airplane.
You could do anything.
And survive. Yeah, he does so much cool stuff with the optic blast in this.
Well, they get into...
Yeah.
We're introduced to secondary evolutions in this when we get Emma Frost, a character we'll talk about in a bit, surviving an explosion, turning into diamonds. That is, in the comics, the first secondary mutation. You find out later, they do these minor changes where they're like, actually, Cyclops has always had one. It's that he has a super ability to understand angles. So he can understand mathematics and vectoring better
really
than
good
any
at pool.
human alive. So that's why when he's
Doom.
when he's doing those like shoots to blow himself back, those whip pans, those perfect shots.
Yeah,
it does make you think like, yeah, that would be cool if you could do that.
And it's pretty sick when you see it in action. And damn, okay.
Yeah, the show does a really good job of like showcasing what they can all do with their different powers, even with Storm and stuff, like showing unique ways that she can use her powers. Yeah, it's awesome.
They make
Beast
Jubilee's powers
takes
interesting.
over the Sinnoh. Well,
yeah, Jubilee.
They're fighting for their life. Like they're like, we got to figure out something to make
something
this
to do here. But that's
Jubilee.
Later,
I like her as a character. She's always had the worst power that she can shoot fireworks out of her hands or whatever. Love her style.
What do you do, Jacob?
Yeah,
you're right. I don't have cool 90s style like her.
That's my
I'm
power.
not good at video games. Yeah.
You don't wear big yellow rubber gloves when you go out.
I don't have earrings
cool
with my name on them.
Visor thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bret Hart.
Well, of course, we get a new character for this show, Sunspot, who is sort of introduced in the beginning and becomes sort of her boyfriend, I guess.
He gives us that, like, your parents don't accept who you are angle.
Yeah,
So
born into a
that's
rich
fine.
family who. It's interesting because it's kind of nuanced because it's not that the mom doesn't want him to be a mutant. It's that it would look bad for their family company or whatever for PR. So they're trying to hide it for that reason. But yeah.
Well, it's that classic. It could happen to any family but ours.
Yeah.
Right. And we can use the PR as an excuse, like, we're hiding behind that when really we just don't accept you kind of thing too. So there's a lot of nuance there. So Cyclops, all these character writing is great. I guess to bring into, like, he's having a baby, and then we get, after the trial episode and stuff, like, who the main threat is going to be, or one of the main threats, because we have this, like, horror episode where we introduce Mr. Sinister, right?
Mr. Sinister.
Mr. Sinister returns. Morph, who's our big sort of rebuilt character from the previous season, because they were obviously a character in that, but a lot of Wolverine's arc for those 5 seasons was, I gotta find Morph. Where's Morph?
Right.
You didn't really get them being part of the team. Now you get a little revamp, and I thought they ruled, but they get
I don't really remember them from the original, but I'm sure they showed up as like one of the cameos, like Cable or Bishop. Random X-Men would just show up sometimes in the original show, from my recollections.
Making jokes all the time, from what I remember. He'd be like the annoying one. Hey, look at me! I'm Scott Summers. I'm a big nerd.
Well, this is my question. So, everyone says, okay, Magneto is one of the most powerful X-Men. Storm is one of the most powerful. Wouldn't Morph actually be the most powerful X-Men? Because you can turn into any other mutant you wanted to and use their powers. So technically, you're the most powerful. You could turn it, as we see, you can turn into the Hulk.
Yeah.
So it's like you can turn into
wild.
Yeah.
So turn into the Hulk and seemingly use like radioactive punches, which seem like very crazy.
So you can turn into anyone and use their power. So I think my take is that Morph is the most powerful mutant alive.
If that's how it works, I do not disagree with you.
You say Magneto is super powerful. You can turn into Magneto and use his Magneto powers, or Storm, or whoever.
Morph is one of those weird characters where Morph only appeared in the comics like 4 times. Like, it was this character that was in the Exiles, which is this spinoff of the X-Men, and then in the 90s. And then they were like, well, when we're doing the new show, we don't want to use Kitty. We'll use Morph. And you're like, okay. So they use Morph for this like long killed arc or whatever. Now, Morph's power is like Mystique, just to change appearance. That whole first series long we need to find you, where it's revealed that they're being experimented on by Mr. Sinister, who is this advanced geneticist. That is where the turn into mutants and have their power comes from. And Bo DeMaio specifically had this good tweet that I wish this deleted scene could have stayed in the show. He talked about a deleted scene in the trial episode where right after Morph turns into Colossus and sort of like tanks that laser blast or whatever, there was a shot where Morph changes back to Morph and starts to melt and says, sorry, when I turn into mutants for too long, I destabilize, and starts to like turn into like a goo.
I guess that's the limitation, but
there's like a length for it.
Yeah, but even to temporarily turn into the Hulk or Storm or Magneto,
Juggernaut, Blob. I mean, those are some heavy hitters. Yeah,
Juggernaut's also not a mutant. Just saying.
No, you're just using magic.
The distinction,
gems.
That's funny. Is like the distinction of what is and is not a mutant, because as we can see, there is, like, we see the Avengers in the show, we see Captain America and Iron Man and different people, and Morph turns into Hulk. So I'm assuming that he can turn into Thor and become a Norse god, I guess,
unless
for a
there's
limited
some
time.
Stipulation that the gamma radiation caused technically a genetic mutation in Bruce Banner. Whatever. It's comic books, so he's as powerful as the writers need him to be, and we'll let him be. That's a little bit of a caveat, I guess, for Morph.
Yeah. From my knowledge, I think a mutant is someone who's born with their abilities, whereas these other people like Spider-Man or something like that gets their ability from something, or like Captain America. So they're not mutants.
Deadpool, Hulk, and Spider-Man are what you call mutates, opposed to mutants. You're absolutely right, Jacob.
But yeah, we should mention also, Morph is, of course, non-binary and uses they, them pronouns. So I think that's pretty cool, because Morph, as someone who's changing their identity all the time, would be identify as not non-binary. I think that makes
and a new voice actor, AJ Locascio.
Nice.
Great.
Apparently in love with Wolverine. So
Oh, that
Yeah.
final scene. Oh, I mean, it's too
Yeah,
much for me.
yeah.
I loved it
We'll
so
track
much.
through. I love it.
yeah,
For sure. So that's our threat, though. Sinister is back, baby. Going back to how Morph got his power.
and explain.
We
Yeah,
learned
Mr.
that Jean-
Sinister for us,
Well, Mr. Sinister is not a mutant either. He's
but just looks like a vampire kind of.
he's
He's
pretty
a Victor
much
Timely type.
Nosferatu. He's a Victor Timely. He's a human being who was born in the 1800s, who just started experimenting on mutants and said like, "Oh, if I use your DNA, I can live forever and keep doing this." In the comic books, he's very much associated with Apocalypse. That's where he gets his life extending tech most of the time. I think it was in the original series here as well, but obviously they kind of draw a different distinction.
He just
but
chooses to look like that.
Yes,
Mhm.
with like a metal flat top and black lipstick.
Diamond in
I'm
my
not
head.
positive that would be my look.
Wears like a cool like
Um,
black cloak thing.
yes, and if you want to talk super queer coded, the current runs have sort of established Mr. Sinister as the ultimate X-Men villain. So it is interesting to see if they'll keep leaning into him. This is Eric Bauza, who's like an awesome voice actor who does like a ton of voice acting.
Sure.
But he creates Madeline Pryor in this, who is the Jean Grey clone. That is from the comics as well. The Goblin Queen, an arc called Inferno. And we get some great homages to where literally they put her in the mommy step on me outfit and we get like a fucking great fight with Daddy Magneto fighting mommy Jean Grey, where the whole time I'm like, I don't care who wins. This is great.
Yep.
Right. So in this show, of course, when we're introduced to these characters, Cyclops is with who he thinks is Jean Grey, but is actually Jean Grey's clone, named who later goes by Madeline Pryor. The real Jean Grey shows up in episode 3 with like amnesia, doesn't trust her own memories kind of thing. And so we realize that this whole time, or for an undetermined amount of time, Scott Summers has been with Jean Grey's clone. They had a baby Nathan, who is infected by this disease by Mr. Sinister, some kind of crazy disease. So they send him with Bishop, the time traveler, to the future so that he can get rid of this plague or whatever. And then we get the big twist of it all, which I know this is something from the comics too, Colin, maybe you can explain, but the character Cable is Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor's son, Nathan, from the future.
Nathan Gray. Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin is James Marsden's son.
Which obviously
Right.
that movie gets into none of this. Like the most confusing backstory possible.
Well, this is crazy to me because obviously
you
Cable
did
was
not know
in
that.
the. I didn't know that, and I looked it up, and I know it is something from the comics, but obviously Cable was in the original show, and I don't think they ever mentioned that. Like that's why it's such a big.
You would talk
twist.
like, you know, and I've seen a bunch of clips people have now posted of being like, "Do you know that was your mom?" Where Cable was like specifically shooting at Jean Grey in the original
Oh,
series.
sure.
Like, why would you be doing that? So
Yeah.
You're not Madeline Pryor, or are you? Anyway.
yeah,
So
truly.
Cable comes back from the future and is like, "I'm your son," and of course we have to talk about Genosha, of course, which is a mutant country that Magneto started in the original show. That's sort of become a safe haven for mutants in this time of tolerance where they're trying to get humans to accept them. Yeah.
Well, first off, I just want to pause real quick. This is when I, as an X-Men super fan, the two things you just said. One, I'm seeing Cable, baby Nathan Gray, get infected with the techno-organic virus, which is the thing that kind of makes him half metal. He gets sent into the future. I am at this point, we're on episode 3 or 4. We got 10 of these. I'm texting super X-Men fan Joe being like, okay, I know
he's going to be Cable.
I know who the villain of this season is going to be. It's going to be this alternate reality version of Cable called Strife. I'm like, that has to be what they're leading towards. And Joe's like, oh, interesting. So we're doubling down on that. Now Jacob Genosha is getting introduced. And I'm texting Joe. I'm going like, Genosha, Krakoa. There's always been these like mutant habitats or societies that they create. I hate all those. I'm an Asteroid M guy.
Asteroid M.
Joe's like, Asteroid M. I love Asteroid M.
Yeah.
The look on both of our faces when the villain is revealed and Asteroid M's revealed, I was shocked by both of those.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we
Wow.
can talk about our other villain here in a minute, but
The real villain, yes, because I blew it. I did not guess correctly. Yeah.
Well, there's
But
some red
Cable,
herrings, of
very
course.
interesting. Yes.
But of course, Genosha which was in the original show, in the '90s show, that Magneto created this country for mutants. It was kind of like where all the bad mutants lived in the '90s show, where they would.
And real quick, you guys definitely remember that scene in Apocalypse, I think it is, where Michael Fassbender's like, "Look at the country for mutants I've made," and it's like a field with like 2 shacks.
Oh, sure.
And
I
they're
don't
like
even remember that,
the
but
ground.
that's why
They're
we
like,
need to rewatch
yes,
this.
our mutant society. We'll call it, and I believe they do say Genosha. But please continue.
Yeah. But from my recollection in the '90s show, that was kind of where Magneto and his minions would kind of hang out and plan their next scheme against the X-Men or whatever. But now in modern times, it's become sort of like it's in the UN now, or it's trying to become in the UN.
Through his trial, that he's allowed to submit to be in the UN, right? Like, it's like, okay, times are changing. We're gonna have.
And you even have Madeline Pryor. So obviously, once the real Jean Grey showed up, Madeline Pryor, her clone, was like, "I'm out of here. I don't want to complicate things with Scott and everything." So she goes, and she's going to be like an ambassador for Genosha. And then we meet some other cool cameos like Emma Frost and different other
Sebastian Shaw. We get all the different. So we get the Morlocks, which are the underground people.
Right.
We get the Hellfire Club, which is sort of the shady, background of the mutants. X Factor, the government sort of association with it. Moira McTaggart, who's the one human element and representative. You even get like the line of like, "Why do you like let one of these like human dogs on here?" by Emma Frost. You're like, "Oh my god, this is horrible."
Yeah.
And they want Daddy. They say, "Zaddy, you have to be in charge." Now, they've invited 3 representatives to Genosha for this. We've got Zaddy, our beloved white-haired Silver Fox. We've got a little bit of our roguish Southern charm, Rogue. And then we got our dirty little cage boy.
Yeah.
Well, and this gets into this whole love triangle, right? Where we have
my crop top.
Y'all want to play some basketball down in the swamp? Gambit, what are you talking about?
But we learned some backstory about Rogue and Magneto, that basically they have a previous relationship. Before Rogue joined the X-Men, she was sort of taken in by Magneto as his sort of protege. Also, there's some romantic overtones there. And now we have Rogue being like, wait, do I want to be with Magneto instead of Gambit? And so she's kind of confused. Gambit's feeling kind of cucked. Magneto's just there being a silver fox.
Rogue at one point says that she broke up with him because he has too many Holocaust nightmares. Like, oh no.
Yeah, I did see it. There's a clip of the original show where at one point Professor X forces Magneto to relive his experiences in the Holocaust, and I was like, that's some fucked up shit right there.
You piece of
Maybe
shit.
Magneto was right.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Well, this whole show proves that. By the end, I'm like, get out of my mind, old man.
Yeah. This is a violation.
It's a Star Trek Enterprise episode about that.
Yeah. But Magneto asks Rogue to sort of join him in running Genosha, or like, on the UN Council or whatever, right? So she's feeling kind of conflicted. And then, so they have this big gala at Genosha and everything, and that's when
they were making love, drinking wine.
Oh man,
we get
God, when an old man screams, that is my absolute favorite moment of this series. But we get the moment. We get a terrorist attack. Absolute devastation. 9/11 times 1,000.
Cable shows up, and this is an incredible scene too.
Awesome, yes.
He meets Madeline Pryor, his mother, and she recognizes. She says, "I recognize your eyes," right? And has this moment of realization where she's like, "You're my son, Nathan," and then dies because there's a terrorist attack that blows her up.
The writing again. Your eyes. You made it. And he screams, "I'm sorry, Mom," as he's pulled away. And she says, "For what?" As she turns into dust.
Yeah,
my God.
This is the episode that's like, whoa, wow.
So especially with current events, of course, it's like anything depicting something like this is like hard to watch.
Yeah,
absolutely. So this is literally based on Operation Zero Tolerance. It is the comic line it's pulled from. This is the end of Chris Claremont. He's no longer writing it. God help me, I just lost Grant Morrison, a non-binary writer. It takes over the new X-Men at this point, starts writing this incredible story. It is a Genosha attack. It goes exactly like it does. Gambit needing to save the Morlocks, but it becomes much more heroic. And they get attacked by this thing that's called a Wild Sentinel, which is this sort of, I mean, he calls it a kaiju, right? Gambit.
Right.
It is
The
sort of
master
like
mold.
a Godzilla combined,
Massive.
Super Sentinel, basically.
And of course, we have the guy that created the Sentinels in the '90s show. What was his name?
Bolivar Trask.
Bolivar Trask. He's played by Peter Dinklage in the movies. If you remember that.
We have to do that. We have to do that.
Yeah.
At this point, this is good enough to warrant it, you know?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's making me, reinvested in X-Men stuff, which is not something based on the trajectory of those movies. Like not something I ever thought I would be like, I really want to like rewatch these X-Men movies.
No. Dark Phoenix is calling you, Jake.
Oh God.
Oh, no.
We didn't get, you know what I just realized? We didn't get any Mystique in this new season.
There were a lot of people who thought Val Cooper, the blonde sort of UN ambassador the entire time, people thought, well, she'll be revealed. No, then of course not. So, yeah, interesting.
But this episode is really the turning point, I think, for...
Yes.
This is a lot of talk. I've seen this Genosha thing being kind of related to the Pulse nightclub thing, like we opened
yes
which was a happy nation, it's like
and it was an LGBT attack on LGBT. It was politically motivated,
right?
Just like this. And
now Bo DeMaio has said he frequented the Pulse nightclub, that it was as a Miami resident, that was a haven for LGBTQ, like you're saying.
So we're putting these issues that have always existed in the X-Men, we're blatant, like this is what we're talking about here.
And this is such a big event. That it becomes what the rest of the show is about, right? Like it's the ramifications of this. Whereas in the first half of the season, there were some more standalone episodes, like where Jubilee is trapped in a video game and stuff like that.
Oh, my cloned pregnant wife. What weird drama we're having. And literally after episode 4, it's like the ramifications of when you're literally having Beast have a conversation with a woman in the next episode where she says, well, God, I just wish all these protesters though would stop like breaking glass windows.
Violence is the language of the unheard.
You're saying this to me when I am looking at the bones of my brethren like scattered around here.
Which is an MLK quote. Violence is the language of the unheard.
Wow. Well, protesting just makes us all so uncomfortable, doesn't it, Jacob? I mean, it's just it's almost like that's the point of it.
Yeah, right. And again, current events, it's like this could not be more like topical right now with college campus protests and stuff like that. But and of course, so we have Gambit sacrificing himself in this attack and dying. Rogue kind of going crazy from. Also, Magneto is presumed dead in this explosion, so she thinks that she lost both of the men that were kind of in her life, which is Gambit and Magneto.
To pause you again, the adult imagery here. One, you're seeing incredible action scenes. The writing with Gambit is so top notch.
I think the Akira slide, like there's crazy choreography, like it's awesome on top of the writing.
Hell yeah, there is.
Yeah.
But to have a concussed Eric Lensher Magneto wake up, see the devastation he's seeing, it intercuts animated flashbacks of the Holocaust. You see young Jewish people in the ghetto holding the barbed wire of whatever horrible situation they're in. Cuts back to Magneto, who says, never again. Never again. He keeps saying never again. We will never ask ourselves how many people we could have saved. For him to immediately step up in that moment. And his final scene, Jacob, the presumed death, where he turns to a young boy, Leech, and speaks in his native language, a character who has separated himself from humanity to say, I am not you. I am Homo superior. I shed my past. To be a powerful god like that, and into your final moments to revert to a German child and to say, "Be not afraid." I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, again, that is so fucking powerful. Who has the balls to put that on TV right now?
Yeah.
Even in mutant society, the Morlocks are still like a lower caste, so to speak. Like they're still, it's like, it's really, you couldn't have done it any better, right? It shows
Right.
an attention to detail. It's like unheard of in any
How about
That's
show.
why I've
Hans?
always that's why I've always loved Magneto. He's such an interesting character. And I was thinking about even in X-Men The Last Stand, not a good movie, but one part of that I always really liked is like when some mutant is asking him like, "Oh, where's your fucking ink, man? Where's your ink, old man?" And he's like, I was inked once, never again." And it's the fucking number from when he was in, in
Yeah.
Auschwitz. It's like, god damn.
I shared that clip with you earlier where he dies, the big scene in X-Men Last Stand. My favorite part is actually the moment after that when one of the people says, "We finally killed that guy." And Magneto turns to her so angry and says, "My greatest regret in life is that my best friend had to die so our dream could move forward." I
Yeah.
loved that, man. You're just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Magneto
Yeah.
is a conflicted character. I mean, because he is doing what he truly believes is the right thing. But yeah,
And having
so
seen that in action, like we'll not ask how many more we could have saved. Like now the X-Men, the surviving X-Men have a very clear path, I think, laid out in front of them for the next 5 episodes.
yeah, so Rogue's going insane with grief, and she's just like seeing red. So she's going rogue, if you will.
Is this
Remy's
anymore?
dead. Gambit's
Remy's
dead. So
dead.
they need a couple more X-Men. They go, "Nightcrawler, what are you up to?"
And
He's
can we
like,
shout out the
"Baby,
line?
I'm here."
The episode's name, the name's Gambit. Remember it? Like that's
Oh,
one of
yeah.
the hardest
The
line. Like that's
best.
one of the saddest
Remember
anime
it.
deaths of all time.
Remember it.
Yeah.
Like for real.
Also,
really
one of the
affecting stuff.
I don't know if you guys noticed, one of the episodes in this season is called Bright Eyes.
No.
Oh yeah, it was because it's Cable's eyes.
Because
You
he's
have
because
his
he
eyes.
got those eyes. Yeah.
You
Yep.
have your eyes, bright eyes, bright eyes.
Bright eyes.
The thing about when Gambit blows up the Sentinel, his
Mhm.
power turns stuff purple when they explode. Right? He
Mhm.
grabs that thing that's in him and he turns it purple, and then he puts his other hand on it and like really puts his powers into it, and it turns like stark white. And you're like, that thing was like a nuclear bomb when he blew it up. Like he
Yeah.
really fucking blew that thing up, dude.
He's really phoning it in most of the time when he's fighting. Like, I'll throw a card at you, but like he is
Yeah.
capable of
Like,
going.
no, I will kill you.
Yeah.
You will die.
Well, the fact that the thing like stabs him, and then he uses that because he just needs to touch the thing to
Just needs to
activate
be
the potential
connected, yeah.
energy.
But does it speak to like he was always regretted his life of crime? Like, I don't want to overdo it. Like, that's why he just throws cards and hits him with a stick. It's like, I
Right.
could go crazy on you, and I'm not, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't make
That's
me,
kind of what
but-
this show shows us, that all the X-Men like could be more powerful but choose not to, basically, because they
Yeah.
don't want to
Mhm.
kill people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're
Well, now
looking
we're trying to
for
find Trask. We know who made Sentinels, so let's start there.
so they track him
This has
down.
to be a Sentinel. Yeah, let's go find Boulevard Trask. They find
That's
him in
kind of like-
Japan or Mexico or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I
somewhere.
forget. But there's some kind of red herrings of like, who's really behind this? Is it Mr. Sinister, or is he actually working with someone else, or is it Bolivar Trask? Well, he was being used apparently, and then we find out who the real villain is Bastion, right?
Mhm.
Bastion.
Our
I've
favorite
never heard of
character,
Bastion.
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 The
No,
never-ending
we're all
story.
familiar.
Can you tell us anything about Bastion?
So Bastion, again, not a heavily comic a period character. It had a very similar arc to this. When he was revealed as the villain in that flying purple people eater, Magneto's safe
Yeah.
scene, I texted Joe afterwards, was like, let me know when you watch X-Men. I don't know who the villain is. And he said, okay, I will. And then he watched it and he said, okay. And Joe sent me a picture of the toy of Bastion that he had.
Wow.
And he said, okay, here's who this guy is. I've only seen him a couple times. He's a super sentinel. It turns out I had seen him in one of those fucking, how there's a million X-Men fighting games, like not just
Yeah.
the Marvel Capcom ones, but like a million
Yeah.
bad ones too. Bastion's
Like
the
Terror
villain of
Norm
one
and
of the
X-Men
bad
versions.
ones. Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
But of course,
A terrorist
his
costume.
sort of backstory in this show, or what made him a villain moment, is that Professor X thought he was a mutant when he was a kid because he does have a power that he's a technopath. He can talk to machines, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so Cerebro detected him and was like, oh, of course, he's a mutant. Let me go to his house and recruit him like I do for all my young students. But his mom, who hated mutants, right, turned him away and said, no, get out of here. And Bastion grew up believing that basically Professor X rejected him or something, or wouldn't allow him to join his
Well, we'll
school.
fix you. It's the classic, repress it, repress it, repress it. No. We're not. You're not going to that gay school. We're fixing you. It's
Right.
like, "Oh, okay.
Right. So he
Yeah.
kind of grew up in essentially a Christian conservative household, basically. But again, the distinction of like what is and isn't a mutant. It's like he has a power, but he's not a mutant. He's just has this power, I guess.
Technically, he's a robot. I mean, by the end of it, he's
become more machine than man.
future sentinel that merges with a master mold in the comics, and the way that they do that in this is so much more convoluted. Where they're like, "I see a sentinel. It's hooked up to his father, who was a janitor, and she's making love to a woman." Where you're like, "Okay, wow, that's wild."
Yeah.
That's
But
one
essentially
thing I will
his
say.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, just about this show in general, like I felt like a dummy sometimes with how quickly information was being. It's cooking,
does
and I'm
move,
not that
yeah.
It
familiar.
moves, Mike.
It almost expects you to know certain
one
things.
line. Yeah.
The emotional
from the
beats are landing,
comics.
but there is some like the Phoenix Force is gone now. Let's move on. Like there is
Yeah.
some
It
of
was
that.
in me, and now it's gone.
Okay.
But I'll forgive
It's
all that
very
for how
convenient.
strong everything else is. But it is
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
But essentially, you find out his master plan is to make human sentinel hybrids that are basically zombies that turn normal people into these zombie sentinels that are there to hunt down mutants.
Yeah,
And
and
he's
then, like,
also
Trask
behind
was
this-
the first one we see. It's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
What is this?
So that's the reveal, is that Trask is actually one of those human sentinels and turns into that. But we kind of find out like these people, they're being it's against their will kind of thing. So they're trying not to kill these people, but trying to figure out a way that they can reverse the sentinelization.
knowingly take the procedure. They just don't know the results, because we're again, to talk about modern commentary, we're getting this campaign of misinformation that Bastion creates. He's constantly saying quotes like, "Don't make the tragedy too big. You don't want too much sympathy for these people." But he's also hitting so hard the misplaced anger. Well, if a mutant can teleport and a cab driver loses his job, maybe he ends up
Man.
on a forum, making some unsavory friends where they just talk about how angry they are all the time, where you're like, oh, you mean the thing that has ruined Western society?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Like, and then again, like technology fueling these kind of
He owns
social
Facebook.
movements.
Bastion owns
Yeah.
Facebook. He
Right.
he knows what you get in your algorithm, Mike, and he's
And like
pushing
you might not
it.
realize it, but you're becoming radicalized. Like they signed up for Facebook, but now look at you. Like wrong group chat, right? Like, it's
Now you're a
wild.
zombie.
Yeah.
And Bastion is voiced by, I thought this was interesting, Theo James. Who's,
Wild.
Kind of a name that
He's a movie star. I mean,
Yeah.
in comparison to the rest
he's
of
like
his
not
voice
a voice
cast.
actor. Like, he's a legit.
Yeah.
He's been in stuff. So
Has he done other voice stuff before?
Whoa.
I'm not sure.
Interesting.
But yeah, he's kind of one of the next. Like he was kind of being positioned as like might be one of the next big up and coming stars, and he's been in
We
like,
all obviously know him
Divergent or something.
No. We all know him from Underworld Blood Wars. That's
Of
a movie
course.
we all talk about all the time.
I was gonna say Divergent.
Yeah, he's in Divergent. I know him from season 2 of The White Lotus. He was in that. But yeah,
Bastion of the arts.
Yeah. But
Sebastian.
Bastion is working with Mr. Sinister on this plan, we kind of find out. And so basically, yeah, the X-Men have to stop this human sentinel army. Then, of course, we have Magneto, who we find out didn't die. He was actually being held captive by Bastion.
Is
and
it
then
true
let
he hasn't
go.
said a word since Genosha? And then you just get these. And there's a term for it, because I saw people calling it out specifically. In the gay community, there's something I believe called a Christian cross, that is like an S&M style, and he's up in
Yeah.
that
Oh,
the
sure.
whole
He's like
time.
tied up like that.
He's
Yeah.
constantly in these black
Brief.
fucking thongs.
Yep.
It is just,
I mean,
he
yeah,
is just
he's very
flexing
sexy.
those muscles and just giving you dirty looks while Bastion's like, yes, my pet, my little pet soon will. I mean, it is like, but you're watching it and you're like,
Shaving
absolutely.
him. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, he says, ooh, we're going to use the heat to get it out a little more while he's being tender with his skin, Mike. It is
Wow.
very,
A hot towel.
yeah. You're like, this is on Disney Plus?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
And then you have this UN woman who I was unclear about this, but I guess she was in on the plan, but she didn't know the full extent of like the terrorist
Right.
attack on Genosha. But she basically lets him go. Who you thought was Mystique. Yeah.
Who I thought was Mystique. Quick cameo from my favorite Marvel character of all time when Doctor Doom says he denounces genocide.
Yo.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. That's great.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
they're like,
Dr.
Bastion,
Doom.
we didn't know it was going to go this far.
Hey, I didn't know you were going to do that, and I'm against that. They're all like, noted. And
Yeah.
then they just continue. He's still part of the plan.
Right.
Crazy.
But this UN woman, she kind of has a guilty conscience. She lets Magneto go. Magneto goes
The
to
best sequence in the whole show.
Ooh.
The fucking Magneto was right speech that she gives, where again,
Magneto was
what
right.
happens when she takes the collar off? We get a flash of the fucking numbers on his arm. It's
Yeah.
always there. It is always ever present with you what you are supposed to be thinking.
Right. So he kind of, I guess he goes to like Antarctica and does something with the poles of the Earth to magnetize them. So basically, kills all the power on Earth to try to stop these human sentinels. Not only that, but basically, he's like, fuck humanity at this point.
He's holding
because,
Earth hostage at this point, yeah.
Yeah.
Cyclops in the next episode says the death count is in the thousands. You have to imagine how many fucking airplanes were in the sky that just fell out of the air.
Sure. Yeah, it's like all the
Jeez,
power
right.
in the world was cut off at the exact same time. Like, yeah, it
Just
caused
Spider-Man.
crazy.
Spider-Man checks it on this. He's like, the power's up.
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah.
I feel like
So now the
Spider-Man's
X-Men,
here.
the X-Men have a
Fucking
battle on two fronts where they have to stop these human sentinels. They have to stop Magneto from what he's doing. And then we didn't even mention the Professor X stuff where he's been on this whole other planet the whole time.
Jacob, you passed the part where Rogue calls Captain America a bigot. I'm like,
That's
No.
right, because Captain America shows up when
So
Rogue
crazy.
is going rogue.
Like, why don't you protect mutants? He's like, well, I kind of got to stay
You're
in
on the
my
side of the
lane. It's
government.
I have a
basically-
PR thing.
It's a whole thing. Yeah, he's like, I can't be seen doing
I
that.
like that she
They're
just takes
you.
his shield though, and it's like, then fuck you, throws it into the woods.
Yeah. Guess you
Hell
won't be
fucking
needing
yes.
this.
Yeah.
But we're saying, so up in space, there's this thing going on called the Kree-Shi'ar War. Now, we've seen the Kree side of that, and we've seen
Ronan the
Ronan
Accuser.
the Accuser. We've
I
seen
was like,
all
there's
this
my
Captain
boy.
Marvel stuff.
He got in a
To
dance
get
off. Yeah.
Gladiator and the Royal Guards of the
Yeah.
Shi'ar Empire. Basically, Marvel's Superman was fucking astounding. And then you get, once again, this incredibly progressive episode that ends with Professor X being like, here, students. You're basically all committing genocide by,
Yeah.
you're gentrifying the universe, basically. Which you're like,
So I'll
oh,
say-
okay, that's wild.
I'll say this was probably my least favorite episode. Just that
Over
they
the
don't
arcade,
explain
this one.
Well, the arcade one maybe, yeah, but this one is
Okay.
like they don't explain anything about like who are the Shi'ar, who are all these people.
No.
Like when Ronan, like when I was like, okay, I know the Kree from the MCU movies, I know Ronan the Accuser, I don't know any of these like bird people. And now all of a sudden, Professor X is marrying the queen of this planet, and he's going to become the emperor. And I'm like, what the fuck is going
Got
on?
a
This is-
spacesuit that lets him walk. He doesn't
Yeah.
want to
Sure
use
is
his
named
power.
like Killbird or whatever. It's like Murder
Death
Lady,
Bird.
Deathbird. You know, I was like, she's probably a bad guy, right?
Deathbird wants to rule the universe. In the previous Phoenix stuff, we saw all this where it was actually their brother, King Lilandra, or her name's Lilandra, King Justin, or whatever the fuck it is. He's trying to usurp all this. It created this divide between the two sisters in the Civil War. Again, the only thing I like by this one is the sequence of the astral plane at the end, where then Xavier gets the basically mental radio residual signal from the death of Genosha, where he
there's
sees
terrorist attack.
a
I have to go.
skeleton Gambit stand up as he screams, "No! They were making wine! They were making love, drinking
That's
wine,
right.
and dancing!" Ah! See, like,
He's basically
explode. He has a
yeah.
stroke, basically, and they're all like, "Are you
Yeah.
okay?" And he's like, "We gotta go."
Well, he's
Oh my
giving
gosh.
these people like a psychic lesson of like, don't like stop being like imperialists or whatever. And he's
Mhm.
like, I have to go. Like my children need me.
She's like, "The Civil War will continue the second you leave," and he's like, "Yeah, but Gambit's dead."
Yeah.
Right. That's my kids.
Which I know, I guess this has some like connection to the original show. I don't know. I don't remember the Shi'ar in the show or anything, but I guess
It
maybe
doesn't
people
matter.
more knowledgeable will understand. But basically, and it's weird because in the MCU, of course, we've seen the Kree a lot and we've seen Skrulls, but we haven't really heard of the Shi'ar at all.
They try in the Dark Phoenix movie. Fox tried to use the Shi'ar. That's what what is
Sansa
her
Stark?
name? No,
Well, she's
it's
the Phoenix, right?
yeah. Who is the fucking? I can't remember this actress's name. I'm sorry, but whoever the villain is, and they choose the Dabari, which is a different alien race. It sucks, Jacob. It just fucking
yeah.
sucks.
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
Can't wait to watch it later with you guys.
Yeah.
But that was my least favorite episode just because you had that as the A plot, and then the B plot was like the Storm Forge stuff, which I was like,
right. Yeah.
This is whatever. Like,
Which
just
again,
get
you just said you just saw where it was going the whole time. She'll get her powers back. That's very
yeah.
nice.
She's got to learn some things about herself, and then she'll get her powers back.
There are like there's good lines there where she's like dealing with that, I don't know, Babadook, whatever the hell that thing is, you know.
The adversary, which
Her
let me
inner
tell you how
demon.
racist that thing looked in the comics, because it is a Native American spirit. It's a guy in a headdress, basically doing a lot of bad things.
So weird spooky owl thing is a better choice, I guess. It reminded me of the bear from New Mutants. Bad movie too.
Yes.
Well,
very true,
Forge
the
is
demon
basically like here, take this like ayahuasca or whatever, and you have like an ayahuasca
Let's trip
vision.
out.
Yeah. But yeah, she gets her powers back. Professor X is like, I need to go back to Earth, and like things are going really bad right now. I need to show up and like be there for my Xmen.
We're getting sorry, real quick. We're getting some classic looks. So things like the punk rock mohawk for Storm the entire time before she transforms and then goes to
into
her classic.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of those? I never really liked the mohawk.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the young movie Storm from Apocalypse, another bad movie.
Alexander Shipp from Barbie.
Yes,
oh,
that's
sure.
true.
I love her.
That's true.
Yeah.
She's great.
She's great.
Yeah.
It's a good look, but yeah, to get the classic Storm, I think the Mohawk's cool, but I like that we get the classic Storm return. I like both.
I like the
looks
return to
fun.
classic, and then the
like
real classic looks of the costumes where they're putting on their old costumes.
Yes.
Because the classic costumes were destroyed or whatever. So they're
Weapon X Wolverine.
Yeah, Cyclops wearing his like old Cyclops uniform, I guess, or like Jean Grey
hair.
with the old wild stuff.
And we get the great Cable has sort of now joined up now, and you called it out before. What did you expect? Black leather. He puts on the blue thong too. So very fun.
My cousin actually was like, before this episode that I'd seen it, he's like, do you know what's going on with Cable and Cyclops? I'm like, I don't know. You can spoil it. And he's like, yeah, it's like his kid from the future. And he sent me the comic book cover. And in the cover, when they're doing their adventures, they're wearing like a sick black outfit. So it's like in the comic books, it is black leather, maybe as a double reference to like the movie. And
that could be
right.
Yeah.
And wasn't there a line in one of the movies of like,
what did you expect?
What do you expect? Like
spandex.
Blue and yellow or whatever? Oh,
that's the first. That's the original.
That's right.
So I think it's a double call. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. But we also look at your son, look at your dad's eyes. We got to go do some crazy stuff, Cable. Like that's really effective emotional stuff.
And
like,
Jean Grey can use her powers to make his eyes visible.
You have
psychically,
your dad's
or
eyes,
whatever.
Cable.
You have your dad's eyes.
Wow.
Yeah.
But the X-Men, they got to do a lot of fighting here because they got to stop these human Sentinels. They got to convince Magneto to stop doing what he's doing, and then Magneto and Professor X both are like unconscious and have this
Well,
whole. Yeah, go ahead.
they're trying to confront Magneto, and we get that big, famous panel from the comics, Colin, right? The Wolverine thing. That's
Fatal attractions. I'll render the adamantium from your bones.
That was
Ah!
messed up. Yeah, I'm interested to see how they resolve that, because how does he get the adamantium back inside
He
of
just
it?
drinks it. He just drinks it.
right. But it's like that's
Brings it
something
back
that's
down.
always, as someone who's watched the show, it's like that's always been in my head that like you're so lucky that you've never annoyed Magneto enough.
Yeah. That's
For
like
him to
Magneto
do that to
at any
you.
point could like control
Mike,
Wolverine.
Any of the movies, yes.
Yeah.
Mike, the main squad of the X-Men is okay, guys, let's pair off. Colossus, Wolverine, you go fight Magneto. Where
Yeah.
every time you, as a reader, you're like,
That
Cyclops,
seems like a bad
you know
idea.
not to do that.
Bishop, are your guns made of metal? Yes. Okay. Let's
Right.
not do that.
Plastic guy, you're up.
Yeah.
Right.
But then you find out that he can like control the iron and people's blood and stuff. It's like you don't realize how powerful Magneto really is.
He's Omega for a reason, yeah, truly.
It's like
he
and
can
this,
literally
they lean
blow
more
up
into
the whole Earth.
electromagnet.
Yeah.
He loves to make force fields in this show. You
Which
never
is-
see that in a movie, which is cool.
No. And it must lead into like how much he respects Xavier. Otherwise, he would have just killed Wolverine 30 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
there
That's
is
why
some
Wolverine's like,
underlying
we're
restraint.
gonna have to kill him, bub. And it's like, I
Yes.
don't know about that, man. I don't know if you have the ability to, because he at any point could just like throw you into space or something.
Magneto
he's
survived
also-
his second or third genocide. He's at his wit's end
He's-
now.
He's
Right?
also
Yeah.
80. He seems so
Yeah.
strong. I would feel like none of us can kill him. He is immortal.
He's on a bulking
God.
cycle.
He was in the
Yeah.
Holocaust. It's the year, well, I guess 1997, but he's pretty old.
Still. And also, I'd be like, Wolverine, do not kill a guy who survived the Holocaust. please. But
Right.
so everybody's
Yeah.
split up into teams.
Hmm.
We got the sequence where Cable, Jean, and Cyclops prior went to Bastions. That's where they sort of uncovered all this stuff. They found out the mother. They found out
He
the
turned his
grand
mother
plan
into
of
it.
it all. Like we said, the big EMP. So everything has split now, where after they go to Mirror Island and get these old outfits, they go, okay, this half, you're going up to Asteroid M. We just got to stop Magneto, convince him to turn the power back on. Other half, you're going to Bastion. We got to turn off these fucking Sentinels.
Mhm.
And it seems like in this one, because we get the quick cameo of Captain America and Iron Man with the
Black
president.
Panther.
There's also something
there
on
for
a
a second.
board where it says all the Avengers are up in that Kree war. So you have to assume like everybody's in space or something, which I think is
Yeah.
a cool excuse, right?
Well, later
Yeah.
you see the board of like the mutants that are like missing or presumed dead, and it says Scarlet Witch off world, which I thought was
Yes,
interesting.
yeah. And
Yeah.
Quicksilver too, which you're like, doing what?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Magneto sees his kids.
Hanging out with the birds. So we get this confrontation, and pretty much, I don't love the pacing of how these final 3 episodes go. You kind of wish they'd just released it as like a fucking movie or something. I don't know.
Mhm.
Mm.
But the constant stop and startage between the Magneto stuff gets resolution in this final one, where we get the opening in the astral plane. We are in Eric's mindscape. This often talked about this entire season. First meeting between the two. They've both
Yes.
referenced separately, saying, when I first had the beer with Magneto and we sat down and really hammered out what it meant that I'd be MLK and he'd be Malcolm X.
Right.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Oh, wouldn't it be crazy? What about these mutants? Wouldn't it be crazy if you were a mutant?
So
Maybe I
we
am.
get the scene where we do it, and Jacob, again, a gay man at the head of this, when it's 2 guys at a bar saying to each other, it'd be pretty crazy to admit you're
you?
that
Yeah.
thing. And one of them's like, hey, watch your fucking mouth. You know
Yeah,
where we are?
Never admit that to
Keep
anybody.
that to yourself. And he flat out turns and in his mind says, actually, I am that thing. And I need you to know. And they have that conversation. It is beautiful. And the
Yeah.
entire imagery of staying in that bar as it fills up with the cold waters of despair that Magneto has filled his mind with, of trauma that he cannot get past. And when Xavier says, my mind has these waters too, I'm not going to leave you. We'll stay here together, even if the water pulls me down. I love you. And you're like, again,
Damn.
how? Quick pause. Jacob,
Yeah.
how is this going to work? In a new movie, you still have Magneto come from the Holocaust. They can walk these backgrounds still. How do you translate this to the screen? I don't
I
understand
don't.
because it's so powerful. How can
This-
you do it
Yeah.
without it? You called it the linchpin of the X-Men before. I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Well, and it's been explored so much in movies already. And I mean, how are you going to top Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen? And then even James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender were also good. It's like you're going to recast the X-Men for like live action
Third
MCU
time.
movies.
Well,
It's
fourth
like,
Yeah.
time if you count this.
yeah, but it's like you're going to try to
Yeah.
top Patrick Stewart as Professor X. Like, good fucking luck. Like,
You couldn't. You brought
Yeah.
him back in Doctor
friend.
Strange. You were so desperate.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're going to do with like live action X-Men. Like, to me, it's like, I don't know how you're going to cast it. I don't know how you're going to like, it's like the Batman thing again, where it's like we've seen Batman's childhood so many times. It's like you can't just keep
I
rehashing
see that fucking pearl necklace get ripped one more fucking time.
Right.
Dude.
Spider-Man
So
2.
it's
Like, we've seen the origin enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why in the MCU Spider-Man they just skip the origin because it's like we already know how he became Spider-Man. Like we don't see him get bit by the spider, right? So
But some
yeah.
people complain about that, where they're like, "It's dumb
It's like
that
you need to
don't
see that 20
how I'll do
times.
that." It's like,
Yeah.
why? Yeah,
Because it's a thing I
don't
remember.
know.
But yeah, we'll
even
maybe
our boy
speculate on
Zack
that.
Snyder had to show Batman's childhood.
In a
Right.
Superman movie, he had. To.
Yeah.
Slow motion. Pearls.
Right. Pearls, yeah.
But this is the linchpin, and again, like, well, maybe we'll speculate. Final thoughts, like, what do you do with the X-Men in the MCU? But yeah, this scene where he's like, "I'm not gonna leave you," like, it's crazy, and like, is that where Magneto finally is like, "Damn, maybe," right? Like,
So
maybe don't be an asshole.
what is happening here, Mike? Is he taking his memories for him? Because he says those lines of, "I can't see my family's faces anymore. The men, they came and took them in the night."
So you were a child, you can't remember their faces because you were too young.
Okay.
When you experienced that trauma, you were too young. Like, it's
Right.
not
Yeah.
you forgot them. You didn't like forgive yourself, like, kind of thing. It's
I was
so
very
crazy.
worried Professor X was violating him here. How do we feel about this? Is this
I feel he's
crossing
being
a line?
supportive in this. I don't think he's
Okay.
the way I read it is he's there.
I think they were gonna kiss at one point, so I think it is very supportive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very supportive. I'm borderline violating. Yeah.
And by the way, I mean, Ian McKellen as the original Magneto in the movie is like casting a gay man to play that role was also genius. And of course,
Genius.
you know, BS, we have thoughts about him, but I do think as a director, you know, he did a good job with those movies. I'll just say that as another gay man, but
or Sir
yeah.
Ian maybe brought something to the role that even was
Oh, yeah,
beyond
for sure,
BS's
like,
abilities.
For
him
sure.
and Patrick Stewart bring the gravitas, and like every scene with them together, it's like those are the best scenes of those X-Men movies.
Yeah.
I love when he says, "Xavier, you shall not pass." That's my
Old friend.
Yeah.
Keep your
Old
secrets.
Mutants.
Mutants always never cease to amaze me. But there is like the depth of like you were not correct to exist when you were a child in Nazi Germany. You're not correct to exist as an adult mutant. Like he's never felt belonging. It's like
Right.
Charles to be like, you belong with me, my guy. Like that's incredible.
We need to use our words. And Magneto's response of, "Great, flashback to when my village used their words against the tanks that rolled up to them." And he takes a sip of his beer when he says that. He's so sure of his trauma, once again, being this, thing that we can just look at
Because
and go
they
like,
both have,
yeah.
you know, different upbringings that kind of shaped who they became. So Charles Xavier never had to go through all that. So
He's
he can't understand, you know, Magneto's perspective in a way. Or that's what Magneto believes anyways.
And it seems he tries to, I guess, sort of like he tries to take some of that pressure off or whatever. I'm not sure the mechanism by which that works. I know there's like Onslaught or something in the comics.
Is
like
it the
sometimes
whole
a version of this?
The Fatal Attractions comic is literally he's pushed too far. He rips the metal from Wolverine's bones. This plays out. Xavier goes in his mind and says, "Then I will do my final move," and he just erases his mind. He just completely wipes him out, and that creates a huge problem for them further. I don't know what he does in this, because is he even controlling him when he turns the power back on? I guess he
I
is.
think he just
Well, that's what's
like,
crazy with this show is that he's just like is still willing to accept him even after what he did to Wolverine. It's like,
right.
Yeah.
damn.
I
But
think he Persona 5s it though. I think he kind of shows him enough to give himself grace to be a
Yeah.
good guy. I think
he
that's how
changes
this
his
is.
heart.
Yeah.
It's a lot like Persona.
Looking cool, Joker. Yeah.
Come on, X-Men.
Yeah.
We gotta go.
Oh man, Gambit would fit right in.
Yeah,
But yeah, he
Gambit
does
would
sort
be
of
a-
convince. He
Come on,
convinces
Sherry.
Magneto to sort of have a change of heart.
Mm-hmm.
They wake up or whatever, right? And then I'm trying to
Now we have
remember
to
what
stop an
happens.
asteroid.
Now,
Asteroid M is
They're
crashing
trying
Earth
to stop
because
it
of
the whole time. It's
the
a
U.S.
ticking
government
clock.
blasts it
Meanwhile,
because it's the
yeah.
Magneto Protocol or whatever.
Magneto Protocol. They're
I think
like,
that's what they
"Fuck it."
call it.
They do.
Yeah.
They're literally
They do,
like, look,
100%.
we've got protocols for this. Meanwhile, so what's going on otherwise is at the base of Bastions, where they're setting up the Sentinels, even though everything is turned off, he is acting like the hardline receiver. His technopathy
He's a transmitter
is
or whatever.
being the
Right.
direct line, yes, to transmit control for these Sentinels.
He is the mainframe.
Till at least he can upgrade himself further and get to what he ends up needing is like the heart of Asteroid M for some reason to do that, and then he will be able to reactivate the human Sentinels. And in the
Right.
process of that, we do see him fully evolve. So he transforms from his comic accurate looks throughout, like the pink version of him, the
Mhm.
weirder, more metal version
metal
with the long
bird.
goatee, but then the Archangel at the end, that
Yeah.
is perfect Bastion. So you're like,
Mm.
okay, we got all three of the looks. That's cool.
That's
Cell,
like the whole
perfect
time I was just
cell.
like, so you hate mutants, but you are basically a mutant. Like
You're
you understand that
Very
you're
mutated.
at this
I'm
point
like-
you are a mutant.
I'm just a computer mutant, but he cuts off Cable's arm and uses that kind of.
Well, that's I
Super
think
cool.
that's the
Virus,
twist,
right?
right? He's like he basically brought Cable back from the future for a reason to take his arm and use the future technology because he's like I could have used death marches or something, but I used a bomb for this specific reason for a certain amount of time to bring you back or whatever. Like
Right.
Mm-hmm.
that was his plan the whole time, I guess.
Yes. And we also got the twist from Cable that we didn't talk about where Morph points out, oh, if Cable's here, you must be coming back to fix another dystopia. And he goes, no, it's a utopia. Sebastian really makes things work like for humans, but we are not good. So that's why I kind
Right.
of got to do this. And we're like,
Mhm.
oh, okay.
Utopia for humans. And then he's
Yeah.
like, well, how many times have you had to see this unfold? Like
200.
200 times. You had to
Yeah,
watch your
live, die,
mom
repeat.
die. Yeah.
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 Crazy. We get Phoenix shows up to destroy Sinister prior to a little cameo.
Right.
Pulls
Yeah.
the DNA out of him.
Looks old. Morph Dorian grays him. Here's how you look now. Get out of here. You ugly old.
looks the
Basically like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
He runs
I'm
up to him. He
old
says,
now.
"How do I look? How is my face?" If you would you ever talk to Morph and be like, "Show me how I look"? Like he's not a mirror.
Nope.
I don't know.
I guess if you're sinister enough. You're right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess.
But so
I
through
need
the
to look
Phoenix thing,
sinister.
though-
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I've sharpened my teeth. She repairs the device that would shut down his ability to control.
Yeah, he was
larger
also
bandwidth.
controlling Cable at one point
Yes.
through this like gem in his forehead or whatever.
This getting pretty
Yeah.
crazy. So we're
So-
able to disable
Yeah.
that mechanism, and then we need to stop.
They're fighting him on Asteroid M, and then they're all the X-Men are ready to like team up to use their
fucking
powers to
awesome.
stop
It's
Asteroid
fucking
M
awesome.
from crashing into the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like all prepared to die because they're like, we're probably all gonna die trying to save this thing, but that's what we gotta do. But then Magneto finally wakes up, uses his power to lift the asteroid up and save the world. So
Yeah. They did it.
and then
That explodes.
through that, we see, are all the X-Men dead or something? Cuts to several months later. Oh, it's not so much where are they, but when are they? Bishop shows up.
Mm-hmm.
So we cut and we see we have two teams of X-Men that have kind of been separated.
Gold and blue.
Some of them are in the year 3000 BC in the past, and some are in the year like 3000 something in the future. And in the past, they meet a guy, and they're like, "What's your name?" He's like, "My name is and Sabin or whatever.
In Sabanur.
Is that it?
Yes, the first one.
Oscar Isaac.
Which of course is
Do-
Apocalypse. A young
It's not
Apocalypse.
Apocalypse now, though. He'll be Apocalypse later.
Yeah,
you know.
Apocalypse now.
He's a
Nice.
little gray, not Apocalypse now.
Yeah, Apocalypse later. Yeah.
He's not Martin Sheen going around in
The
Vietnam
horror.
River.
The horror of Genosha,
and
the
then-
horror.
Oh no.
And in the future, they meet some Mad Max looking ass tribe.
This is an adaptation of a comic book I could not believe that they're doing. It's called
Really?
Tell me.
Phoenix and Cyclops Adventures, which is a weird story where Jean Grey and Cyclops are sent to the future with the Ascani clan, and they meet their young son, Nate Grey.
Nathan.
Okay.
Yeah. And Mother Ascani, by the way,
Ascani, they are kind.
voiced by Gates McFadden from Star Trek The Next
No
Generation.
kidding!
Beverly Crusher.
Hey, great.
Really?
Yeah. So cool
Mother
cameo
Ascani's a
there.
cool character. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so that's sort of the cliffhanger we're left off is
And we
Okay,
don't
with-
see so you just said 2 time streams, Jacob. What we don't see is Storm, Morph, and Wolverine. We don't know where they went to. That's horrible. Could be
And
a
we
third.
Right. And I want to bring up with more from Wolverine that moment when he could kind of admit Wolverine's knocked
Yes.
out. You know, do
I know what you need to
heal.
hear, so I'll say it.
morphs into
I
Jean
love
Grey.
you.
Yeah.
Well, but also morphs into Jean Grey.
Right. Which
Yes.
even Bo
Well, I think
DeMaio
you're
on
saying
Twitter
morph
did.
into Jean Grey. You're saying morphs into Jean
Morph
Grey.
transforms into the form of Jean Grey
There
to
we go.
deliver
And
the
on
message that I love
Twitter-
you, Logan.
Bo DeMaio, the creator, did clarify that Morph is in love with Wolverine. Basically,
Who needs clarifying when you have
some
the
people take
horror
that as like,
episode?
oh, he's it's platonic. He's just being.
But you
a
literally
good
have the episode where
friend.
Morph's like, Logan, are you in the shower? And he's like
Yep.
so excited. He's like going in there. He's like, that's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's like another
don't
one of those moments.
Turns
It's
into Sabretooth. They wrestle in that one end of that episode. They're just
really good
two of
friends,
them
Colin.
wrestling together. Yeah, they
Yeah.
love each other.
No, they're roommates. They're roommates.
Yeah.
They're just roommates.
They're roommates that lived
roommates.
together
Barf.
for 60 years. Yeah.
Logan and Morph, my favorite sitcom.
Yeah.
So we don't know where they are. Yeah. So that's good to know. And then did you guys see the post creds? You watched the whole thing? Because
I
we
did,
did
I
a
did.
third timeline thing. And this is present day.
This is present back to the current Genosha, you would imagine.
So this cuts to and I believe this is current day Apocalypse
Mhm.
picking up a card from the Genosha rubble. So it's some kind of Gambit reference, obviously.
The Queen of Hearts, I believe, Rogue.
And he says, such senseless death, maybe implying that Apocalypse, the guy who creates his horsemen, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, of course,
Right.
pestilence, death, war, and disease, or famine, or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
says death. Could
Hmm.
Gambit be coming back?
So Gambit could be one of the.
Archangel
Horsemen.
joins up in certain comics. Yeah. And Arn Anderson is one of the 4 horsemen at one point. Oh, that's
Well,
pro wrestling.
personally,
Sorry.
I can't believe that a comic book character would come back from the dead. That
No,
seems
it's
crazy
never
to me.
happened. And it never will.
Not even in this series that we just
No.
watched.
Yeah.
No, not like 5 times in 10 episodes. Yeah.
No. But that's where we're left off.
That's X-Men
Wow.
97, season
What
1.
a fucking series. So, we'll get to our final thoughts here, but just real quick to talk before those final thoughts.
Bring it
Just to
into
say,
Landon.
wrapping up the show, you just have to wonder, where the hell does it go from here? It seems like we're going to get it pretty quick because, like we said, it is done recording that season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we should get it right away.
Yeah. The animation seems economical and how they've approached it, So I guess we'll just have to wait and see, as it were. But yeah, it was a good time to jump over to final thoughts, wrap it up, and we'll kind of figure out where we're at with X-Men 97 and the future of X-Men in the Marvel Universe right after this.
We're back here on Normies Like Us. We're in the future. We're in the past. We're in the current timeline where it's, of
Mhm.
course, 1997. Because we just finished up talking about season 1, X-Men 97, the rebooted Disney Plus original series. And I think, like we were just saying, we all enjoyed it very much. I don't know what you could want
Hell
more than
yeah.
this. But maybe this is a good time to say, what is that future for mutants? Obviously, we're
Mhm.
going to see a couple of them in this thing called Deadpool soon.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, I'll be interested to see this movie Deadpool, Deadpool and Wolverine, because of course this is sort of melding the Fox X-Men universe into the MCU, which was rumored for a long time.
Mhm.
Now, of course, because of the MCU multiverse that they've established, basically what I think is that the X-Men, it's just a different universe, right? So Hugh Jackman Wolverine is coming from his universe, which was destroyed by the events of Logan.
Mhm.
Essentially, all the mutants are dead except for him. So he's now coming into the MCU, which
But
with
you,
Deadpool, I guess.
but you do think we'll see a direct follow up to one of those films that we have? He's from one of those films.
Yeah, he's the same he's the same Wolverine from all those films.
Okay.
If you look at the trailers, like they're in that like no man's land limbo kind of thing.
Right.
Um
Yeah.
and you can kind of, and there's been hints of like, oh, your world was like destroyed and shit, so now you're coming into our world or whatever. So I think it's all going to tie together in the whole multiverse thing with the MCU.
I mean, people have pointed out in trailers that like, oh, Pyro's back and all these weird cameos from all the movies, but basically
Yeah.
what that could I guess my pitch is like one, I've not been more excited about X-Men than now. Like
Oh,
after
fucking
watching the
yeah.
show, I want it to
Right.
be done correctly. So if they just kind of use this to find another universe that new X-Men plop in that are brand new, like no Fox, reboot, no BS. Like if we use Logan through the TVA mechanism to just get our own X-Men,
Yeah.
brand new.
Well, the
Like
question is
that's
like,
how I do it.
what's going
I
to
don't
happen
know.
to Logan in this movie? Maybe he'll die or something. And to kind of give them a fresh start of X-Men in the MCU. Obviously, the first two Deadpool movies, he was like tangentially in the X-Men universe because they would, mention the X-Men sometimes,
And that was Fox
more of as a
side. He was
joke.
in the Fox
Yeah,
mansion,
yeah,
Yeah, he would call it out though. He'd be like,
yeah. He's very
Yeah.
self-referential.
"They're the
But
X-Men."
Why
and
is
when they're
nobody
in that
here? Yeah.
limbo in this movie, you can see like a giant 20th Century Fox logo in that
Right.
desert. So it's going to get very, break the fourth wall as Deadpool's style.
Yeah.
I
But
think what
I'm,
this
yeah,
show did though, because like I said, I'm more excited about X-Men than ever. Like, I don't know if it was planned to do the rollout in this order, but at the very least, I think this is going to help the box office for Deadpool because the people who are watching this show are really excited about X-Men. At least that's my
For
yeah.
sure.
impression.
And again, this show is obviously not in the prime timeline of the
No.
MCU, but it's a different universe where we see, of course, Captain America and that that universe is Captain America and Iron Man and Black Panther and all these different characters. So yeah, it's a parallel dimension essentially, or
We were
universe.
Two
willing to watch
Spider-Man
Dark
cameos.
Phoenix. That's how much X-Men we want.
Yeah.
I'm not excited
that's-
about it,
yeah.
but we're willing.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. Like, Mike, I love what you're saying. Like, I feel the same way where every week I watch this thing, it felt like I was a kid watching a Saturday morning cartoon. And then
Yeah.
I would like get out my hacked PSP and play like X-Men Legends or like
Mhm.
Ultimate Alliance 3 or like Jacob, I know you'll talk about, you were also
Yeah.
like feeling the X-Men fever and like your outside activities. But just to cross examine that with
Mhm.
Joe was saying off podcast to us recently that during May the 4th, he was filling himself up with a lot of energy of, I just rewatched the Star Wars. I feel good about Star Wars again. I'm excited for the Acolyte. It's that thing where it's like, I never thought I could get that way with Star Wars again. I'm not sure I ever could, but here I am with X-Men feeling that way, and all of a sudden I'm excited for the new Deadpool movie. That makes me feel like Joe.
Mhm.
Yeah. It is a question of like, what is the future of live action X-Men movies going to be with the MCU and everything? And that's like what I'm interested to see is like, because we already know, like, even the casting, like I was mentioning, it's like, how are you going to surpass some of these castings? And of course, they've had to, people thought, oh, how are they ever going to top, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield or whatever for Spider-Man and these different things. But like,
Mhm.
even with the Fantastic Four, the way they're casting that, I'm like, I don't know. Like Pedro Pascal, as much as I like him, I don't really see him as a
Yeah.
Reed Richards. So I'm not super in on this Fantastic Four casting.
Yeah.
I'm kind of worried about what they're going to do with the X-Men, to be honest.
Yeah, and what makes me sad is like seeing this show and how good it is. It just reminds me that I really think the X-Men is the best comic book team. Like they're so much better than the
Yeah,
Avengers when they're done well. They just haven't been
So
done
much
well in
better.
live action in so long.
absolutely. Yeah,
Like
and this is why I think it
the
would be
Avengers are
really fun
nerds,
to.
dude. The X-Men
Yeah,
fucking rule.
I think it would be fun to revisit the movies because they do they start good, and then I think, and like I like First Class a lot. Days of Future Past is okay, and then it kind of takes a nosedive with
The third
Apocalypse
of each of
and
those
Dark
are
Phoenix.
right. And
Yeah,
X-Men 3 is not good. It's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
once Jennifer Lawrence is calling the shots and she's saying like, "I'll give you 10 minutes where I wear the makeup," you're like,
right.
"Ah."
Well, the problem is they're too
Olivia
Mystique
Munn, sorry.
focused because they're like,
They're so
we got
star
this
driven.
young
Yeah,
star,
yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence, who's going to play Mystique, a obviously one of the main characters of X-Men. That's always has been. So it's like you're changing her backstory so that she was so pivotally important to the whole Magneto Professor X thing, which she never was before. She was just like a side character, like a side
It's
minion of Magneto,
You're
basically.
reminding me, Jacob. There just at the period that was 20th Century Fox throwing things at the wall to be like, people like X-Men. Um, that Nicholas Holt now, who does interviews talking about like Lex Luthor, where people will be like, so what was, back when it was X-Men Origins, of course we all remember X-Men Origins Wolverine. That banner was started to make 3 movies: X-Men Origins Magneto, X-Men Origins Wolverine,
That's right.
and of course your film X-Men Origins Beast. Nicholas Holt, what do you have to say about that? And he goes like, oh, that script, that was the best script I ever read. Where you're like, shut up. Like, what are you like? How
Yeah.
dare you say that a solo Beast movie could have worked?
Mhm.
How dare you?
As a
Maybe
matter
if
of
they got
fact,
Kelsey
that's
Grammer.
nothing.
No.
Yeah. Well, it's like
Toss out
they
scrambled
made
mutants.
X-Men Origins Wolverine. Then they're like, well, we
Yep.
fucked this up. Let's
We
make
fucked up
2
bad.
more
They're
Wolverine
trying to retcon
movies.
that to this day in Deadpool. They're like,
Yes.
we're
Well, that's what's so
sorry.
funny is it's the full circle because that was the first appearance of Ryan Reynolds as Weapon X
Yes.
/ Deadpool, where they said
Wade.
the merc with the mouth, we're gonna make him so he can't talk and doesn't use humor and sarcasm.
Mhm. The one scene when he did was like the highlight of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh
Get
yeah.
out of here.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna
Yeah.
change everything about this character. He's not gonna wear his iconic costume.
Couldn't talk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
gonna
like you
sew
said.
his mouth shut. So to see that now coming full circle, where we have Hugh Jackman Wolverine and the real Deadpool together in a
Teaming
movie, it's
up.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of
The real
mind blowing.
Deadpool and the real Wolverine. He wears the
Yeah,
suit. Like, they do
right.
all the things people wanted. But that's the only card that they have left. So what do you leave for whatever the first actual X-Men Marvel movie is, if you're going to get all the fan
That's the real
service in this
question.
movie of Wolverine wears
So
the costume? It's the Wolverine you like. Yeah.
my prediction is that this will be Hugh Jackman's last appearance as Wolverine, maybe other than cameos or something in the future, but this will be like the definitive end of his arc. Basically, is passing on the X-Men to the MCU, and then something in the events of this movie is going to lead the mutant gene to be found or discovered in the MCU world, and that's going to create the
Activated.
X-Men. Yeah.
I have a pitch.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do Xavier, Magneto, whatever. That's a whole nother can of worms. But after watching this show, I've never liked Rogue as a character more than right now. And I think in the movies she was really like wet blanket, right? And like Gambit
Yeah.
has never been done good live action. So I say those are the
No.
2 characters you focus on to launch
That's
the
interesting.
MCU. Rogue and
Are you
Gambit.
telling me Taylor Hitchens or whatever that guy from
Hirsch?
Friday Night Lights wasn't a good Gambit?
Yes.
Taylor Kitsch.
So that's what
yeah.
I would say. Get a young Rogue, a young Gambit, like pitch anchor the
Anna
new team
Paquin
around
has an
them.
Academy Award bike. How
That's right.
dare you?
One of the
Not
youngest
for
Academy
that.
Award winners ever. Not for that,
Her
but
blood is
it
true.
is funny
okay,
that
Suki.
the original X-Men, that's how they started. They're like Rogue and Wolverine are going to be sort of our audience POV characters.
Yep.
But do Rogue correctly.
Yeah. I didn't
Like,
mind
those
Rogue.
movies-
Like, her backstory is interesting where, like, she kills her boyfriend or whatever.
No, but that's what it is in the comics. Those
Yeah.
movies are so interesting that they're written by David Hayter, aka Solid Snake from Metal Gear. It's like there's so many
Yeah.
things we could
That
talk
is wild.
about if we
Yeah.
covered those movies. It's so
We need
crazy.
to.
There's a lot
After
of fun
Apes in like a
facts.
year. Yeah.
That's right.
A companion series that our last 2 episodes of every month are X-Men and then Apes. X-Men,
I would love
Apes,
that.
X-Men,
Yeah.
Apes. That'd be
Well, you
so
know,
many movies.
as Caesar. No, you know what? You know, I think Koba would say tolerance is extinction. You know.
That's right. The Koba Caesar dynamic, it's very
A lot of
Professor
people call Magneto
I've
and
been making this comparison.
Dr. Xavier.
Koba's the Magneto.
Very
Yeah.
Koba Caesar-esque, isn't it?
No, I think this will line up perfectly. because
Koba?
We'll finish talking about Apes in like basically a year, and that'll be right in time for X-Men 97 season 2 coming out. That we'll start talking about X-Men if we want to plan it that far ahead.
Deadpool will be on like DVD or something by that point. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course we'll talk about that movie in like a month when it comes out.
We'll get more X-Men talk.
And I'm more excited to see it. Yeah.
But I mean, for my final thoughts for this show, I mean, obviously I loved it. It was a huge success, and I think really what I was thinking is it's the ideal version of the show from the 90s in that, like, I think it perfectly marries the aesthetics and tone of the original with modern storytelling sensibilities. And the 90s show, like, it was very episodic because the format was just different back then. Like, it had to be episodic. Obviously there was some 2-parters and stuff, exceptions to that, but if you sat down and watched a random episode on TV, you didn't need to know a bunch of like other stuff. Like, you just need to know these are the X-Men. They're going on some adventure today. They're going to stop the Juggernaut or whatever. This show is a lot more serialized, as the trend has become with streaming and everything now, where it's like we get these shorter seasons, less episodes, but more serialized content between, where it's more like a season-long movie almost. I think this kind of marries it, where there are some more standalone storylines, but it's also all kind of factoring into this bigger overarching plot. So yeah, I think it's the best version of that 90s show ever could be. And I don't know how well that show holds up if I were to rewatch it today. I mean, I'm sure it would be entertaining enough that I would like it, and the nostalgia would kind of carry it, but also has some things lacking just from being a 90s Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing.
Well, Logan sure is chopping a lot of wood this week. A whole episode on this.
Another thing is, like, you see Wolverine actually cutting things with his claws, like cutting humans, and you see blood on his claws, which is not something you would ever see.
I got 6
Oh,
reasons.
we didn't talk about
9.
that Nightcrawler fight.
Yo, that was sick.
9.
3 swords. Yeah, the choreography in
I love that.
this show is some of the best mutant
The
acting.
animation quality is incredible. I think if you compare it to something like Invincible that we're all kind of out on, it's like it's kicking Invincible's ass in terms of animation and fight quality and stuff.
It's as good as like some of the like recent anime, I'd say, as far as choreography and like good anime fight sequences. Like
it's like
and it's not like Studio Trigger or anything. Like the style is almost like Flash animation while trying to hold on to the past aesthetic. It's a very interesting
marrying of the two ideas.
But there's some very complex panels and stuff with all the effects and different things from different powers, and it's like you can tell it's made by someone who really is a fan of the X-Men, wants to showcase how all their different powers can work together and stuff, and it's like it does a really good job of that. So,
and understands what the base premise of the X-Men of like what we talked about, the minority stuff. So
yeah,
amazing final thoughts. Let me ask you one question, Jacob, before we get Mike's final thoughts here. Do you agree with people who say this is the best content Marvel Studios has put out all year, maybe 2 years? And if so, what do you think that they could learn from this to adapt to their live action stuff?
That's a good question, because I do think live action has a lot of challenges that animation doesn't. And I'm sure animation has its own challenges, but it's a lot easier in certain ways to make certain things in animation that it would be harder in live action. I also think the problem with recent MCU movies is just that, like, they don't really have like a unified vision. It doesn't seem like for a long time, the narrative of MCU was like, oh, Kevin Feige is the mastermind behind it all. And he's got this grand vision that's going to sort of culminate in the Endgame. Infinity War and Endgame was kind of the big culmination of a huge overarching storyline that took place over many years. And now post those movies, like they kind of seem kind of a bit aimless, like they don't know what they want to do next. And obviously a lot of these movies they're recut or like focus grouped and all this stuff. So I think a lot of that is the big problem with the MCU that we've had. This show seems like the unified vision of one person, and obviously it's not just one person that made this show. There's a lot of people involved, but having a one creator who has like all these ideas and it's like, I'm going to lay this out, it's going to be really cohesive and work really well. I think that's the strength of it, and that's kind of something they need to get back to with the live action movies.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be my answer.
No, I agree. It's my understanding that the show was pitched off of episode 5, remember it. Like, this is going to be the turning point. We're going to build to this, and then this is going to be the falling action, whatever, right? Like, this is the heart of the show, right? So it was this kind of cohesive vision.
And there's intelligence about that, Mike, to center your show and go like, there's a point. This is the point. We build it all around that. That's smart.
Yeah.
People
it's like we're not just resurrecting
commit a violence and there's repercussion.
Right.
Like, damn, okay. Shit.
I think the thing is like we're not just resurrecting the show just for pure nostalgia. It's just going to be like episodic X-Men adventures. Like there's actually a point to this show, point to this season that like it all revolves around. So I think, yeah, for sure.
It'd be interesting to see how that plays into a season 2 where we do have past, future, present. That's like now a little more out there.
Days of Future Past. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see if they get dazed and confused or whatever. My thought as I was watching this, and kind of going back to how I think Rogue is one of the strongest characters in this thing, right? And I'm like, if I was going to tell a story about like a badass lady who was struggling over like losing someone she cared about and then trying to get revenge, and then she's surrounded by a lot of like unique different kinds of warriors with different backstories and backgrounds, and then there's going to be a final fight on like a falling ship asteroid thing, right? How would I do it? And I wouldn't do it the way you do Rebel Moon, right?
Like, you wouldn't?
No, but you see what I mean? There's parallels between like a falling meteor battle, right? And then like all these people with different powers and different backstories, but you understand who they are. Like
right.
You can execute that well, and they did it here just to put another dig in Zach.
But well, to defend Zach for a second, I mean,
oh no,
this show also relies on you knowing certain things about these existing characters, whereas Rebel Moon is like is introducing a whole different world that's like, basically a Star Wars ripoff, but it's like it still has to do a lot of world building to like set up who these characters are. But it doesn't do a good job of it. You're right.
Right. Like they make an effort with like Magneto showing up, and you could tell that Scott Summers is like, oh, he's the teacher's pet, and he doesn't like this. Like you get character development through dialogue, even if you'd never seen an X-Men. They do a better job, I think, of teaching you about these characters.
I'll say this to what you're talking about, Mike, is that it services it in the moment. Like Cyclops is mad with Magneto in the moment and says it. When Rogue drops Boulevard Trask, the show stops down and every single member of the team says, is this who we are now? And they have a discussion about the repercussions of what one of their members did. A lot of modern media, the sad stretch is on episode 2, you do something that bugs your friends. They bring it up on episode 6 because that's the perfect time to draw it out, to deal with it by 8 for a resolution. Right. This doesn't do that.
You're willing to kill our one lead, Rogue. This is not all right. Yeah, so it's good
he
writing.
Killed
good
Ramy.
Writing. I got nothing. Me neither, sugar.
Ramy.
That's another really good line.
That was incredible. I was like, damn, Rogue is going rogue, like I've been saying.
Yeah,
the scene before it where she's just having fever dreams and they're in Mexico and Nightcrawler's like, hey, you're having a hard time. Let's talk about that.
And you're my sister.
Oh, no. Yes, you're my sister. I love you. But I'm alone. You really lost in the sister department. No, I didn't. And neither did any of us reveal the whole team's there caring for her.
Yeah.
And that's the heart of the X-Men.
Yes.
I love it.
And I've like you said, Colin, I've been very X-Men'd out. I've been playing Marvel's Midnight Suns, which is a game that came out in 2022. I won't talk about it too much right now because I'm saving it for our next watch up. But I've been playing a lot of that game. I've put in like 40 hours already in that game, so
Nice.
that's a lot of fun. It has a lot of Marvel characters, X-Men and Avengers and stuff. It's got Wolverine in there. It's got Magic and some other ones. So I'll talk about that more in the watch up. But
Morph turned into magic and made a sword. Can Morph make a sword out of their self?
Apparently.
Yeah, I guess.
What would happen if they hit you with that sword? That's like them hitting you with their dick.
Well, basically, they can
Could be.
imitate the powers of whatever they turn into, right?
Yeah.
So if you turn into Hulk, you have the full powers of Hulk for a limited time.
If you turn into Sauron, you're a full pterodactyl man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amount of time.
Yeah, quick
So again,
Sauron cameo right at the end.
Like,
I enjoyed that.
Badlands.
Yeah.
Right.
My take, and I stand by this, Morph is the most powerful X-Men.
I like this.
Debate that if you want.
I like that.
nerds.
Morph was my favorite character this whole season. What a standout.
Morph was is sort of the most improved player from the original
Absolutely.
show. Probably.
Rogue was fine in the original. Yeah. Morph got a big glow up. Yeah.
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 You guys have any interest in the Spider-Man 98 if that gets any traction?
Yeah, see, so that's so Mike, let's talk about that real quick. Well, here's the thing. So like Daniel Barnes, the very nice young man who plays the voice actor for Spider-Man, who's been doing it since we were kids, was like, please stop asking me if I am going to reboot our Spider-Man show. Right. I don't make those decisions. You have that. I just also find it so interesting how unoriginal people are that 2 episodes aired at the fucking exact same time as this show. And within 10 minutes, you had people in the DC subreddit being like, well, I just feel like Justice League Unlimited, you could do.
I would love that.
2005, Justice League Limited 2005. Like they should, where every
as a DC kid
show,
growing up,
somebody has gone, well, Dragon Ball Z 2006, it needs, where it's like, you can't just steal the gimmick of one thing.
Gargoyles 95, whatever.
Mike?
Well,
that's the only one.
Yes, obviously
That's the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah,
I agree. I think that the reason it worked with X-Men is one, because the show is so kind of iconic with the aesthetics, even the character designs. Like when I think of, I wasn't growing up reading X-Men comics, but when I think of Jubilee or I think of Gambit, like the image I see is their character from this show. Yeah, exactly.
Sick shirt, by the way. Shout out.
Love that shirt. Yeah, Rogue, like
the Jim
all
Lee
these iconic
1991 look. These looks, the looks we know. Yes.
Right. The suit that Wolverine wears in this show, that is Wolverine to me. But when you talk about something like Spider-Man, the other thing is with X-Men, the movies obviously have been very hit or miss recently, and we haven't got a new X-Men movie in a while. And even the ones that we were getting were bad. Spider-Man, first of all, the Spider-Man show, it's just another Spider-Man show. It doesn't feel as iconic to me as this X-Men show. And we've gotten so much Spider-Man recently. We've gotten, Tom Holland Spider-Man. We've gotten Spider-Verse. So we don't necessarily need this Spider-Man reboot.
Yeah, Spider-Man animated kind of has its own. That Jacob, bringing up Miles, that's very important.
Yeah, we've got Miles Morales.
Has its lane. It's doing its thing.
X-Men was sort of a more neglected property, so it makes sense to bring this show back. Spider-Man, I just don't think it would hit as hard to be like, oh, they're bringing the 90s Spider-Man TV show back. Like, okay, why?
Storytelling can't be as compelling as this either. Like, the backdrop of the X-Men is so deep with like being able to tell these layered kind of cultural parables and things. It's like Spider-Man, he punch villain. It's fine. Sometimes being a teen is hard.
Like one of them will slip through. I'm curious what it will be, if it will be a Disney or if it will be a competitor.
Right. Iron Man.
No.
Well, as I said, as a DC boy growing up, I was a huge fan of Justice League Unlimited, the Batman animated show, Batman Beyond, obviously.
You know what? But Jacob, you know what I'm also realizing is the issue? Kevin Conroy's dead. The voice of Batman. Like he's the iconic voice of. If you couldn't bring that show
Colin.
back.
That's so true.
Nope, it's done.
God, that sucks.
That sucks.
I hate that.
I'm upset.
Yeah. Damn.
I mean, at least he got to, voice him in those Arkham games and stuff. And you had him and Mark Hamill coming back. I mean, I'm sure Mark Hamill would come back to do the Joker, but you're right, it wouldn't be the same.
In a heartbeat.
It'd have to be Terry McGinnis is now old Batman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they would have to just say he's dead.
Further
I mean, it
beyond.
would be horrible.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. No, that would
well,
suck.
My last question for you guys is: what superpower would you want to have if you could pick any superpower? If you were a mutant, Colin, you said something at the top. But you can...
But so back to it. I love
Just
Colossus.
wings?
If I could choose one, I feel it would be Angel. Mike, if I was an X-Men, I feel like I would be Sauron. I feel like I would be the extremely questionable sexuality pterodactyl who's sucking on people, going like, "Give me your life force." Yeah. Unfortunately,
action figures I had. But what would you choose?
it would be that. I would choose that.
Be Angel.
I'd be sucking on people.
All yours are like flying based though, so you would definitely be able to fly. You want wings.
I want to get out of here. I want wings.
Drink some Red Bull then.
Not
for me, I said I love Magneto both as a character and I think his powers are super cool. Like being able to control metal is just a cool power. I think Morph, like I said, is the best, has the strongest power. So maybe I would choose Morph, where I can just turn into other things.
Any power.
That's true.
But if I could have any superpower or just mutant power or whatever,
you would shoot lasers out of your eyes. Of course.
That's right. I have to wear special glasses at all times. And I think flying would be cool. So something with flying is always like I can't deny flying is cool.
I would be too scared to teleport.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, you can only teleport to somewhere you can see, right? That would be the safe way to do it.
Yeah,
well, you just get a bunch of Wise cameras set up all over the world.
Yeah.
I would want teleporting just because I hate traffic. I hate going to the airport.
He is also one of my favorites, of course. He's got a super cool look. Don't like how Catholic he is, but yeah, he's good.
They made him really Catholic in this show. There's so many times where he's
rights
like
to Magnus and Charles.
Yeah, like, let go of my hand. I don't need you praying for me.
Right. Yeah, I didn't ask for this. But teleporting would be mine if I could have it. But otherwise, just the power of friendship, which I think I've already been blessed with. So thank you,
power
guys.
of friendship.
Yeah.
That's what Professor X has.
The power to do a good podcast. That's what I'd choose, Mike.
The power to leave a subscribe, and a review on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. Would be good.
We hope you have that power too.
Actually,
don't put those dampening collars on.
I'll say one other thing, Mike. Your actual superpower is the power of puns. You're the pun master.
The Punisher. Oh wait, that's taken, but we'll figure something out.
That's right. So that's your real life mutant
X-Men
superpower.
recruited the Punisher? Yeah, but he's very different.
He's a different.
He was so excited, and then I show up. He's like, "What the fuck is this?"
What's that?
He just hits him with crazy puns.
This really.
Anyways,
no, I still believe Blue Lives Matter.
Yeah, he still has a cool logo.
Nightcrawler, Mystique.
Yes. Ravenholm, Bluey.
Beast. A lot of blue X-Men.
Famous mutant Bluey. Yeah.
Yeah, famous mutant. That little blue healer named Bluey.
Dog,
All right. This has been a lot of X-Men talk. Write to us. Say you have
Magneto
to do those movies. Well, say Magneto's right. Say we have to do these movies, and we promise we will. If there's enough fervor or outcry, because like we said, it kind of makes us feel icky. But we also did all the pirate films, so what excuse do we have? I guess. So
what are we gonna do? There's a lot of bad people in Hollywood.
And the backbone of the X-Men themselves can outlive a shitty bad director. Right?
That's right.
Yeah,
I'd say good director, bad person, maybe, but he's better than Zack Snyder, right? So
good director,
Zack Snyder, bad director, good.
Don't make me have this.
Well, you love
conversation.
Jack the Giant Slayer. You're always going on and on about it.
Hit or miss director, but I think the first two
Here we
X-Men are better than some other X-Men movies, so I'll leave it at that. But we'll talk about it maybe.
Are you a what is the crime movie? Are you a
Usual Suspects?
Are you a Usual Suspects fan?
Well, that's the most cursed movie ever now with Kevin Spacey and
oh geez,
BS. But Superman Returns, I mean, yeah.
Superman
also has Kevin Spacey in it.
Superman Returns would be our bonus episode of the X-Men.
Right.
Just very confusing. One later Superman movie.
Yeah.
In its own universe, a pocket dimension.
But I think it would be worth talking about as a series, and we could obviously do all the Wolverines too.
The New Mutants. I love the New Mutants. It sucks.
New Mutants.
It's fascinating.
Deadpool. They all suck. Yeah.
Yeah. There's like
Yeah.
maybe I think 3 good X-Men movies out of all the or even not even good, but just like okay movies to me.
But there's 5 films, 3 Wolverines, 2 Deadpools, 1 New Mutants. Is that
there's
true?
6. There's 6 mainline
There's
X-Men.
6 mainline films.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, 7.
There are 7, yeah.
There's 7 because there's the first 3, First Class, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, and Dark Phoenix. So there's 7 mainline
films,
X-Men, 3
full
Wolverines.
with
Your
Logan,
favorite
right?
version of Apocalypse is Oscar Isaacs.
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Yeah, it'll be a lot, but I think it's a franchise worth taking a look at.
A year
Yeah.
plus. I mean, that's incredible.
There's the same amount of Planet of the Apes, or at least close to, that we're going to be talking
Yeah.
about.
I
So
think the X-Men. I think I like the X-Men. They might be my favorite comic book thing after this show. Like I think they deserve it. I think I really, really like the X-Men, and I didn't realize how much.
Yeah, they're a better team, or they're a more interesting team than the Avengers. I think you're right about that.
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
So-
Let me explore that world more.
I'm excited about it, and I'll talk about a lot about Marvel's Midnight Suns on our Watcha in a couple weeks. So stay tuned for that, normies.
You ready? It's coming up. We're
Sounds good.
almost at 300. We're going to do a special 299 Watch It. Get ready for that.
That's
Mhm.
right.
And do we want to say what's coming up next episode, Jacob?
Well, yes, we're going to be returning to the planet of the primates.
Are we gonna be above it or next to it?
I
Or
believe
around
we're
it?
going to be beneath it. So
Beneath
Side near
Can't
it.
go around it. Gotta go under
Yeah.
it.
that's
Yeah.
right. So stay tuned for that, normies. We got some
Yeah.
great episodes coming up, and yeah, as always, we're your normies.
Yeah, like, review, subscribe, like we said, at Normies_Like Us. Check us out at YouTube. We're your hosts. This is Colin Klops. Pew, 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 pew.
I don't want to steal your cognito. I'll be Mike
Mike
Locke.
Gray.
Mike Gray.
Mike Gray. You've got that cable eye.
I have a little bit of
sounds-
gray
That's
here.
right.
Moog.
Yeah. And this is, of course, Jake Lee. I shoot fireworks out of my hands. That's right.
All
I'm gonna
right.
wear a cool yellow
I love that.
raincoat.
Nice. Mike Locke. All right.
Yeah. That's
Cool.
the X-Men.
Well, have you tried not being a normie? I haven't. I embrace
Never.
it.
I never
Never.
would.
To me, my normies.
Tolerance is extinction.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.